Chapter 446. The four-colored clouds in the sky had already disappeared, and the competition for the spirit lot had also come to an end. The cultivators who had snatched the purple spirit lot had already fled. As for whether they could keep the spirit lot in their hands, it would depend on whether they were fast enough and whether they were strong enough. If they weren't fast enough or strong enough, even if they managed to snatch the purple spirit lots, they would still end up with nothing in the end. The competition for the purple spirit lots was already so fierce. If there was a golden spirit lot, the cultivators would probably fight until their brains turned to mush. The cultivators who had obtained something happily scattered, while those who didn't were somewhat dejected. "Little brother." The enchanting woman suddenly spoke up. Lu Yi ignored her and turned to leave. "Stingy." The female cultivator snorted with a depressed expression. However, compared to the cultivators who didn't obtain anything, her luck wasn't bad. At the very least, she had obtained a white spirit lot. In the vast wilderness, Lu Yi sped along. The Cloud River battlefield was really different from the Spirit Stream battlefield. Just from what had happened just now, it could be seen that under the premise of not exposing one's faction, hostile and cooperative relationships could change at any time. It was all about benefits. This situation was simply impossible on the Spirit Stream battlefield. On the Spirit Stream battlefield, the cultivators of the Myriad Devil Ridge and Grand Heaven Alliance would never have a chance to cooperate. Because the cultivators' cultivation was low, their range of movement was limited. As a result, it was clear at a glance whether the person they met was from their own faction or not. However, the Cloud River battlefield was different. Most cultivators were wandering around. If they met a stranger, as long as the conditions were right, they could cooperate to a certain extent. After flying for a few kilometers, a stream of light suddenly appeared in front of him, followed by a few figures. Looking at their posture, they seemed to be being chased. Lu Yi dodged and prepared to go around them. But as he got closer, he was shocked to find that the guy running away was actually the spear-wielding cultivator he had fought with during the battle for the spirit lots. This person had been beaten black and blue before, but he still looked the same at this moment. He was in a sorry state and looked very funny. The battle for the spirit lots had already ended, but he was still being chased at this time. Could it be, just as he was thinking about this, the spear-wielding cultivator flying towards him suddenly raised his hand, and a purple light shot towards Lu Yi. It was a purple spiritual stick. This guy's luck was really good. Just now, only a few purple-colored spirit lots appeared. Hundreds of cultivators were fighting over them, but he got one. However, he was obviously not strong enough to keep the purple spiritual lot. Seeing that the people behind him were about to catch up, he simply threw the purple spiritual lot to Lu Yi who was passing by. As for whether he was thinking of diverting the disaster or something else, no one knew. In any case, that was how Lu Yi had dealt with him before. As the saying goes, an eye for an eye. As soon as the spirit lot was thrown out, the cultivators chasing this person quickly changed direction and chased after the spirit lot. Then, they saw Lu Yi catch the spirit lot in his hand. "Kid, throw the spirit lot over." One of them shouted. Someone else shouted, "This thing is extremely ominous. Brat, you won't be able to control it. Leave it to me. Let go if you don't want to die." Someone else shouted angrily. Just as these people were rapidly approaching, a pair of fiery red wings had already spread out behind Lu Yi. With a flap of his wings, his entire body turned into a fiery light and rushed in a direction. Previously, when he was fighting for the spirit lot, there were cultivators in all directions. It was not easy to activate the flying wings spirit pattern because even if he did, it would not be of much use. But the situation now was different. There were only these people. For a purple spiritual lot, it was worth it for him to take a risk. A purple spiritual lot was second only to a gold one. He had worked so hard for so long before, but he had only snatched a green one. With the flying wings spirit pattern, Lu Ye's speed was like lightning. The spear-wielding cultivator who threw the purple spiritual lot to Lu Yi was stunned. Obviously, he did not expect Lu Yi to have such an ability. In the blink of an eye, Lu Yi had already disappeared. In midair, the wings on Lu Ye's back were constantly flapping. His spirit power was like a flood that was released from a dam, quickly disappearing. Now, he had 3 flying methods. One was flying on an artifact, one was flying in the air, and the other was using the flying wing spirit pattern. Each of these 3 methods consumed more spirit power than the other, especially the flying wing spirit pattern. The amount of spirit power required to maintain this spirit pattern was not comparable to the previous 2 methods. However, in terms of speed, the flying wing spirit pattern was the fastest and more flexible. Even so, there was no way to shake off the pursuers behind him. At a glance, he could tell that the pursuers were cultivators at the Cloud River realm. How could a fledgling like him, who had just broken through to the Cloud River realm, compare to them? The higher a cultivator's cultivation was, the stronger their foundation was, and the faster they could fly. Fortunately, he did not encounter any other cultivators along the way. Otherwise, the situation would not be optimistic. After fleeing for an incense stick's worth of time, the distance between them was only a few thousand feet. Such a distance was nothing to a Cloud River realm cultivator. Gritting his teeth, Lu Yi activated the wind travel spirit pattern again. He had never used the wind travel spirit pattern and the flying wing spirit pattern together. The consumption of the flying wing spirit pattern alone was terrifying enough. Coupled with the wind travel spirit pattern, even if he had broken through to the Cloud River realm and the amount of spirit energy in his body had greatly increased, he might not be able to maintain it for long. However, at this juncture, he could not care too much. If he could not shake off the pursuers, then the only option left for him was to give up on the purple spirit tag. No matter what, his life was the most important. Under the support of the wind travel spirit pattern, Lu Ye's speed increased again. The cultivators chasing him could not help but change their expressions when they saw this scene. They were also giving chase with all their strength, not daring to relax in the slightest. Moreover, from the fluctuations of Lu Ye's spirit energy, it was obvious that he had just broken through to the Cloud River realm. It was very likely that he was only a first or second order Cloud River realm cultivator. Each of them was 3 or 4 orders higher than Lu Yi. With such a huge gap in cultivation, no one would believe that they could not catch up to him. What was even more unacceptable was that Lu Ye's previous speed was not his limit. At this moment, with the support of the wind travel spirit pattern, the distance between them quickly increased. After another incense stick's worth of time, the pursuers could only see a small black dot on the horizon. After a while, they might not even be able to see this small black dot anymore. Even so, they did not give up. Although they did not know what method Lu Yi used to fly so fast, this method must consume a lot of spirit energy. The other party was only a first or second order Cloud River realm cultivator, so he would definitely not be able to last long. So, as long as they did not lose sight of Lu Yi and followed him from a distance, they would naturally succeed when his spirit energy was almost exhausted. Just as they were thinking this, Lu Ye's figure suddenly fell down and disappeared in the blink of an eye. When the pursuers arrived, they looked down and saw that there was only a jungle below them. There was no trace of Lu Yi at all. The pursuers stood mid-air and hesitated for a moment before scattering in all directions to search for Lu Ye's whereabouts. They were not in the same group. Somewhere in the jungle, Lu Yi had activated his concealment spirit tattoo and was quietly lying dormant. He had consumed a lot of spirit energy, and although he had not reached the point of being a lamp without oil, he would not be able to hold on for much longer. He could only hide in this jungle. This information was recorded in the jade slip that Lu Yi had bought from the Tianji Business Alliance. When Lu Yi had seen this information, he had had a strange feeling. It was as if someone had deliberately arranged this. Spirit stream tier cultivators were weak, and they had just come into contact with the cultivation world. Thus, they needed inheritances more. Moreover, The inheritances in the spirit stream battlefield were mostly concentrated in the outer region and inner region. There were very few inheritances in the core region. However, once a cultivator reached the Cloud River tier, they would have already walked their own path on the path of cultivation. Thus, they needed to increase their strength as quickly as possible. The various treasures in the Cloud River battlefield, including spirit lands, spirit sticks, and the various mystic realms, could all help Cloud River tier cultivators increase their strength. It was impossible to say that this was just a coincidence and not a deliberate arrangement. Chapter 447. As the effects of the spirit pill took effect, his consumed spirit chi was quickly restored. Lu Yi was not in a hurry to use the spirit stick. This was something that could increase his strength, so he naturally had to use it when his spirit chi was full. Swallowing one source spirit pill after another, Lu Yi constructed some small spirit gathering funnels on his body to speed up his recovery. He was now a first-order Cloud River realm cultivator, so his 360 spirit apertures still existed. However, as his cultivation increased, the boundaries of his spirit apertures would gradually become blurred. Half a day later, his spirit chi was completely restored. Lu Yi was just about to test how much the green spirit stick could increase his strength when suddenly, a slight noise came from outside, followed by a loud explosion. The alarm array he had set up before had been activated, and the intruder had even activated the explosion array. Hurriedly putting away the 2 spirit sticks, he got up and rushed out. He did not rush out of the cave because there was a tall figure blocking his way. It was a black bear that stood upright like an iron tower. At this moment, the black bear was roaring, and its fur was a little burnt, with blood flowing out. It was obviously injured by the array just now. The pain caused its temper to explode. It slammed its 2 huge claws on the rock walls on both sides, making banging sounds. Rich demonic chi rolled around its body. Lu Yi could tell at a glance that this was a demonic general. Cultivators had different levels, and monster beasts naturally had them as well. For cultivators in the spirit stream realm, they were ordinary monster beasts. Even an overlord like Xiao Hui was only an ordinary monster beast, because it had only reached the limit of its current level and had not undergone any qualitative changes. For cultivators in the Cloud River realm, monster beasts were monster generals. Just like the black bear in front of him. On the Cloud River battlefield, there were many ferocious and powerful monster generals. Every year, cultivators would die tragically under the claws of these monster beasts. For cultivators in the True Lake realm, they were monster commanders. For cultivators in the Spirit Sea realm, they were monster kings. This should be the Black Bear's cave, because Lu Yi had found some black fur at the bottom of the cave. However, he was in a hurry to recover, so he did not pay much attention to it. He did not expect that the owner of the cave would come back at this time and be injured by the array he set up. Facing a fiend general in such an environment was undoubtedly very disadvantageous for Lu Yi, because it was impossible to move his body. Therefore, the moment she saw the black bear, Lu Yi called out, "Yi." Yi immediately flashed out of Hu Po's body and reached out to touch the storage bag around Hu Po's neck. She took out the 9 worlds diagram and activated it with her spirit energy. She shook the diagram open and covered the black bear demon general. The black bear disappeared without a trace. Yi held the 9 worlds diagram in her hand, maintaining the activation of her spiritual power. She nodded at Lu Yi. The next moment, Lu Yi rushed into the 9 realms diagram with Hu Pa in tow. As soon as Lu Yi and Hu Pa appeared in the stone forest, an angry roar rang out. The black bear's sturdy body was like a huge mountain as it charged towards them. Hu Pa roared and landed on the ground. His body expanded rapidly, revealing his true form as he charged towards the black bear. In terms of strength and realm, the black bear demon general was stronger than Hu Pa because Hu Pa had not yet reached the level of a fiend general. The reason he could enter the Cloud River battlefield was mainly because he had a pet contract with Lu Yi. Wherever Lu Yi, his master, could enter, he could enter. In terms of body size, even though Hoopa had become awe-inspiring, he was still much weaker than the Black Bear Demon General. However, he was nimble enough. Just as the two figures were about to collide, Hoopa leapt high into the air. His vigorous body swept past the black bear's back, and his sharp tiger claws viciously slashed at the black bear's back. If it were any other fiend beast, this attack would have been enough to split open their back. However, the black bear was indeed a fiend general. Under the surging fiend essence, it covered the surface of its body, causing Hoopa's attack to not have much effect. Not only that, the black bear stood upright, quickly turned around, and slapped Hoopa with its paw. If this attack landed, no matter how thick Hoopa's skin was, he would not have a good ending. At that moment, the black bear's movements suddenly slowed, as if some invisible force was restraining it. Although it was only for a short moment, it allowed Hoopa to avoid danger. It was Yi's doing. Although Yi could not completely control the Nine Worlds diagram, she could still activate a bit of the diagram's power. Since she was in charge of the Nine Worlds diagram, she could slightly interfere with everything that happened within the diagram. Therefore, no matter who the enemy was, if they fell into the diagram and fought against Lu Yi, they would be at a great disadvantage unless they had the ability to break free of the diagram's restraints and escape. Lu Yi had already unsheathed his saber. The coiling mountain saber, which was covered in a fiery red glow and enhanced by the dual sharpness spirit inscriptions, ruthlessly slashed at the black bear's waist. The thick fiend essence was split open, leaving behind a bloody wound on the black bear's body. Feeling the pain, the black bear roared angrily again. It turned around and swiped at Lu Yi with its claws. However, Lu Yi had already retreated, blocking with the coiling mountain saber in front of him. Under that claw, Lu Yi slid a few dozen feet on the ground. Looking at the seemingly miserable wound, Lu Yi was secretly surprised. As expected of a fiend general, his saber had actually only caused a superficial wound. He had originally thought that his saber would at least be able to severely injure it. Taking advantage of the black bear's attention being distracted by Lu Yi, Hoopa rushed forward again. This time, he was smarter. His snow-white body was like an arrow leaving a bow as he slammed into the black bear, causing it to stagger. At the same time, he bit down and viciously tore off a piece of flesh from the black bear's body. Without waiting for the black bear to counterattack, Hoopa hurriedly jumped away. The black bear's strength was not bad, but after being absorbed into the Nine Worlds diagram, Lu Yi and Hoopa teamed up to attack it. Coupled with Yi's secret tricks, it naturally did not have a good ending. After the time it takes to burn a stick of incense, Lu Yi's saber slashed down and the black bear's huge body crashed to the ground. Its body was covered in cuts and bruises, looking very miserable. Looking at the black bear's corpse, Lu Yi gently exhaled. In terms of cultivation, the black bear's strength was almost equivalent to a fifth-order Cloud River Realm cultivator. But even if Lu Yi, Hoopa, and Yi could kill such a monster general, it did not mean that they could kill a fifth-order Cloud River Realm cultivator. First of all, cultivators might not be so easily absorbed into the Nine Worlds diagram. Moreover, cultivators had more means. Even if they were absorbed into the Nine Worlds diagram, they would still have the strength to resist. This black bear was strong, but its intelligence was not high, so it was played around by Lu Yi and Hoopa. The flesh and blood of such a monster general was undoubtedly very attractive to Hoopa. Lu Yi also liked to eat the flesh and blood of monster beasts. Compared to ordinary monster beast meat was more nutritious and could strengthen one's body over a long period of time. After a great battle, Hoopa had already pounced on the black bear and bit into its flesh. Lu Yi stepped forward and pressed his hand on the black bear's abdomen, circulating his spirit energy to investigate. Soon, he sensed something and stabbed the mountain coiling saber into the black bear's abdomen. With a twist and a pull, a dragon eye-sized bead stained with blood was extracted. Lu Yi took out some water and washed the blood off the bead. Looking at it, the bead had a scarlet luster, like a meat core. A monster core. Ordinary monster beasts did not have a monster core in their bodies. Only after advancing to the monster general level would a monster core condense within their bodies. This was the crystallization and source of a monster general's power. With the monster core in hand, Lu Yi carefully sensed it and could indeed detect abundant monster essence within. Hu Pe, whose mouth was covered in blood from eating, walked over and rubbed his face against Lu Ye's hand, unable to conceal the longing in his eyes. Lu Yi casually tossed the monster core to Hu Pe, who swallowed it in one gulp, perfectly satisfied. Lu Yi called out softly. His vision changed, and Lu Yi and Hu Pe, together with the black bear monster general's corpse, appeared in the open space outside the cave. After storing the black bear monster general's corpse as food reserves, Lu Yi collected the scattered array flags at the entrance of the cave. Only then did he leave with Hu Pe and Yi. Originally, he wanted to try using spirit sticks, but now that he couldn't, he could only find another place. Half an hour later, Lu Yi landed on a small mountain peak. He found a suitable place and sat down cross-legged. Yi knelt at the side, staring at him eagerly, her amber eyes filled with curiosity. It was their first time coming into contact with spirit sticks, so they wanted to know what kind of effects it would have. Lu Yi first took out the green spirit stick. Previously, when he was in the cave, he had examined it. The spirit stick looked like it was made of jade, and its entire body was warm and moist. Whether it was green or purple, its size and shape were all exactly the same. The only difference was its color. Lu Yi didn't know what kind of mystery was hidden in this spirit stick that could actually allow cultivators to cultivate. He would know after trying it out. Lu Yi squeezed hard, and the green spirit stick in his hand immediately turned into fine powder. The green powder didn't scatter with the wind, but instead gently swirled and surged in front of him, quickly forming a green circle. The circle wasn't big, only about the size of a fist. At the same time this green circle formed, a pure mist visible to the naked eye appeared out of thin air. An unending stream of mist surged out from the green circle, and in the blink of an eye, the place where Lu Yi was standing became misty. After a brief examination, he discovered that this mist was actually spirit mist. Lu Yi was shocked. If the spiritual qi of heaven and earth wanted to turn into mist, it would have to be extremely dense. Moreover, this spirit mist that appeared out of thin air gave off an extremely pure and flawless feeling. Lu Yi didn't breathe it in and out, only breathing naturally. The spirit mist entered his body along with his breathing, and was quickly swallowed and transformed into his own spirit power. On the small mountain peak, the wind whistled, but it had no effect on the spirit mist. This spirit mist that appeared out of thin air lingered around Lu Yi, unable to be dispersed by the wind. Yi saw this and hurriedly entered a state of cultivation. Hu Pe also opened his mouth wide, continuously swallowing the spirit mist to strengthen himself. There was no need to mention Lu Yi, who had already begun to construct a small spirit-gathering funnel. In only an hour, the spirit mist that shrouded the surroundings disappeared. Lu Yi examined the river of spirit power in his body, and found that there wasn't much change. The cultivation of the spirit stream tier was to open the apertures, and then let the spiritual apertures form a small cycle. With every cycle, the cultivation level would increase by one layer. At the Cloud River tier, one needed to absorb spirit power to strengthen the river of spirit power in their body. With every breakthrough, their cultivation level would increase by one layer. He then checked his own spirit force river and found that the spirit force in the river was surging faster. The volume of the river had also increased, but it had not reached the point where it could change qualitatively and advance to the next level. Lu Yi faintly felt that if he could obtain 2 or 3 more purple spirit sticks, he should be able to break through to the second-order Cloud River realm. This kind of cultivation speed was indeed much faster than simply swallowing spirit pills. He had always taken spirit pills as the main means of cultivation. Previously, he had thought that the spirit lot was dispensable, but now it seemed that if he encountered a spirit lot bestowed by heaven in the future, he really couldn't miss it. To any cultivator, spirit sticks were extremely important. In the Yunhe battlefield, spirit sticks were even more important than merit points. If one had enough spirit sticks, it would be very convenient for them to do anything. Moreover, he and Hoopa could take spirit pills, but Yi couldn't. With spirit sticks, Yi could also rapidly increase her strength. Lu Yi was quite satisfied with such a harvest after just arriving at the Yunhe battlefield. Tossing a source spirit pill into his mouth, Lu Yi took out a 10-point map to check. Originally, he had planned to investigate the situation of the Grade C Spirit Land, but he had been chased all the way into this deep mountain forest. Looking at it now, the Grade C Spirit Land was already very far away from him. There was no other choice but to set off again. Summoning his spirit boat, he soared into the sky. 2 hours later, night fell. Lu Yi landed on a small mountain peak. It was already late and it was not suitable to continue on his journey. The current him was no longer the invincible Lu Yi of the Spirit Stream battlefield. He was just a first-order Cloud River Realm cultivator who had just arrived. So, Lu Yi decided to rest here for the night before setting off. The reason why he chose this place was because from a bird's-eye view, there were a few dilapidated buildings on the mountain peak. Obviously, people had once lived here, but now, there was no one left. Lu Yi looked around and confirmed that there were no signs of living people. However, he inadvertently found a dried-up spring. He immediately understood that this place should have been a spirit land. This dried-up spring was the most obvious sign. Every spirit land had a spirit spring. The spirit spring gushed out, bringing with it pure and rich world energy, forming a spirit land. However, the world energy of some spirit lands could not be maintained forever. When the spirit spring dried up, there would no longer be any spirit chi, and the spirit land would no longer be a spirit land. From the number and scale of the remaining buildings, this should have been a small spirit land. Originally, there were only 3 to 5 people gathered here. As for what grade of spirit land it was unknown. The size of a spirit land did not necessarily depend on the size of the spirit spring. The larger the spirit spring, the larger the spirit land. Some large spirit lands were only D grade, but some small spirit lands were A grade. There was no direct correlation between the spirit land and its grade. Lu Yi randomly chose a room that looked relatively intact and walked in. Looking around, the furnishings were very simple. There was only a bed, a table, a chair, and a futon. It seemed that the cultivators who originally lived here were not very particular people. Most cultivators were like this. They did not have many pursuits in life and were only obsessed with improving their own cultivation and strength. Lu Yi was the same, so he was quite satisfied with the current situation. After setting up a few simple formations outside the room, Lu Yi returned to the room and sat cross-legged. First, he took out a dragon scale and absorbed the blood chi in it. Then, he swallowed a spirit pill and cultivated while reading. It had already become a habit for him to study all kinds of scrolls while cultivating. This time, he had brought out a lot of books from Madame Yun. Moreover, he had not completely comprehended the 20 sets of saber technique cultivation notes he had obtained from the Wild Saber sect. As for the 5 dragon scales, he had 4 with him and gave one to Hoopa. Hoopa liked it very much. As time passed, Lu Ye's expression suddenly changed as he vaguely heard something unusual. It was not a man-made movement, but rather the sound of flowing water. There were no springs or streams nearby, so where did the sound of flowing water come from? As if thinking of something, Lu Yi hurriedly got up and walked out of the room to investigate. Following the source of the sound, Lu Yi quickly came to the side of the originally dried-up spirit spring. At this moment, the spirit spring was actually gushing out clear spring water, and as the spring water gushed out, it was obvious that there was an extremely rich world energy gushing out. The world energy next to the spirit spring was a lot richer because of this. Lu Yi was very surprised. This was a once-in-a-century thing, and he actually encountered it. After the spirit spring dried up, there was a certain chance of it coming back to life, but this kind of thing was so small that it was basically impossible for cultivators to encounter it. This was originally an abandoned spirit land, but now that the originally dried up spirit spring had come back to life, it meant that this spirit land would also come back to life. He originally planned to explore the situation in other people's third-grade spirit lands and see how rich the world energy there was, but now it seemed that there was no need to go to other people's third-grade spirit lands. He had a spirit land on his side. As for what grade this spirit land would ultimately be, it was not clear for the time being. He could only wait until the spirit spring stabilized before making a judgment. Moreover, Lu Yi knew nothing about the standards of each spirit land, so he really couldn't make a judgment. Lu Yi, is there some kind of treasure down there? Yi looked at the gushing spirit spring with great interest and asked. Hearing her say this, Lu Ye's heart also moved. Go down and take a look. Yi said so and directly dove into the ground to investigate. The spirit spring was still gushing out, and after about 10 breaths, Yi's head popped out, looking a little unhappy. From her appearance, it was clear that she probably didn't find anything. She was also secretly muttering things like, "This doesn't make sense," and "impossible." In her opinion, this spirit spring gushing out a large amount of world energy clearly meant that there was some kind of miraculous treasure underground, but she couldn't find anything after investigating. The world energy that was gushing out of the spirit spring seemed to be born out of thin air. During the day, someone had inexplicably thrown a purple spirit lot at him, and at night, he had inexplicably obtained a spirit land. Lu Yi suddenly realized that his luck was really not bad. Although this spirit land was now his, whether or not he could defend it was still a problem. In the Cloudy River battlefield, cultivators would fight over the ownership of spirit lands, and it was not uncommon for people to fight over it. The higher the grade of a spirit land, the easier it was to attract the covetous eyes of others. If Lu Yi couldn't defend this spirit land, it would only benefit others. He definitely couldn't do it alone, even with Yi and Hupa, so he still needed help. There was a ready-made helper, but he didn't know where he was now. Raising his hand and tapping on the battlefield imprint, Lu Yi transmitted a message to Giant Armor, informing him of his current location and asking him to hurry over and meet up with him. Giant Armor replied, "Ong." He then tried to transmit a message to 4th senior brother and Feng Yuechan, but the message still couldn't be transmitted. After doing all this, Lu Yi had Yi keep an eye on the spirit spring while he took out 16 array bases from his storage space. He had several sets of array bases on hand, all of which were dug out when he attacked and occupied other people's encampments on the spirit stream battlefield. Most of them were given to Shui Yuan to handle, so he didn't keep many for himself. He kept them just in case, but he didn't expect that they would be of use so soon. Chapter 449. Recalling the method of setting up a spirit array, Lu Yi placed the 16 array bases nearby, surrounding the buildings and the spirit spring before activating the spirit array. The defensive power of the newly formed spirit array was not very good. It needed to absorb enough spirit chi in order to strengthen its defensive power. The denser the world energy, the better the defensive power. Moreover, with the spirit array blocking it, the world energy in the spirit land would not leak out. The sky gradually brightened. After a night of accumulation, the world energy in the spirit land had become very dense, but it had not reached its limit yet. This kind of accumulation usually took a few days to stabilize. Only then could the grade of the spirit land be evaluated. Lu Yi began to set up various spirit arrays in the spirit land. In terms of cultivation, he should be at the bottom of the Cloud River battlefield, but this did not mean that his strength was at the bottom. Especially since his attainments in the Tao of spirit arrays were not low. With the help of his spirit arrays, if he was prepared, even a 4th or 5th order Cloud River realm cultivator might not be able to do anything to him. If this was really a desolate land, it would not attract attention. But now that the spirit spring was recovering and the spirit land was coming back to life, it would definitely attract the attention of others. At that time, there would be some trouble. As he was busy, Lu Yi suddenly felt something and looked up at the sky. He saw an enchanting figure in the sky, looking down in surprise. Obviously, she had noticed the abnormality of the spirit land below. For eyes met, and the person was surprised. "It's you?" Lu Yi was also surprised. He did not expect to meet this female cultivator here. This woman was the one who had fought with him for the spirit lots and cooperated with him after a short fight. The Cloud River battlefield was so big, and they had met twice in just 2 days. It was really a small world. The female cultivator looked at Lu Yi and then at the 10 points map in her hand. After confirming that there was no indication of the spirit land on the map, she asked in surprise, "A newly born spirit land?" She had obviously misunderstood. Lu Yi did not intend to explain too much and just looked at her quietly. The female cultivator gently landed outside the spirit array. She reached out and touched the light curtain of the spirit array. Her eyes lit up. "Little brother, are you an array cultivator?" In the entire Cloud River battlefield, if there was a sect of cultivators that was the most popular, it would undoubtedly be array cultivators. Formation cultivators could set up formations. For those cultivators who owned spiritual lands, if there was a formation cultivator overseeing it, the defensive strength of the spiritual lands would undoubtedly increase greatly. Therefore, on the Cloud River battlefield, almost every spiritual land had its own array formation cultivator. Without an array formation cultivator, a spiritual land would not be able to withstand the invasion of outsiders. This was a spiritual land, and Lu Yi looked like an array cultivator, so the woman's mind naturally became active. Even if Lu Yi just looked at her expressionlessly, it could not erase her enthusiasm. "Little brother, are you alone? Do you need a helper? Don't look at how delicate I am, I'm very good at fighting." The female cultivator tried her best to promote herself. As she spoke, she stuck out her chest, causing her breasts to rise. Lu Yi could clearly hear Yi's pouting voice coming from inside Hu Po's body. "Little brother, if you're really alone, even if you're a formation cultivator, you definitely won't be able to defend this spiritual land. How about I help you? I beg you to take me in, little brother." Towards the end of her sentence, she had already started to act like a spoiled child. This was the truth, but Lu Yi did not intend to monopolize this spiritual land. It was unrealistic. According to the rules of the Cloud River battlefield, the first few people to discover a small spiritual land like this could form a temporary alliance. They would occupy it together and take care of each other. Of course, the rules were dead, and people were alive. If Lu Yi had enough people, he could reject them. But right now, he did not know where Zhu Jia was, and his fourth senior brother and Feng Yuechan could not be contacted. The biggest possibility for him to reject them was that they would spread the news of this spiritual land. At that time, there would be groups of people fighting for the ownership of this spiritual land. At that time, things would become very troublesome. Therefore, on the Cloud River battlefield, the first cultivators to discover an ownerless spiritual land would basically have a share of it. "Cultivation," Lu Yi said indifferently. The female cultivator stuck out her chest and said proudly, "Cloud River 5th Order. A Cloud River realm with 360 apertures. Back then, I was ranked 46th on the Spirit Stream list. With the heavens as my witness, I am not lying." Being able to enter the Spirit Stream list meant that she had a good foundation. However, in front of Lu Yi, who was the Spirit Stream first rank, she was still a little lacking. From this, it could be seen that the sect this female cultivator came from was not simple. It was at least a third-grade sect. As for which camp she belonged to, it was not important. "If little brother can take me in, I will work together with little brother to guard this spiritual land. Anyone who dares to invade will be killed without mercy. Come in." Lu Yi activated the jade slit ring of the protective array and opened a gap in it. The female cultivator immediately replied happily, "Okay." Walking in, she thought to herself that her luck was pretty good. She had randomly wandered around and actually found a new spiritual land that had not yet been stabilized. Furthermore, the other party did not have enough people. Only now did Lu Yi carefully look at the female cultivator. He could not deny that she was very beautiful and had a good figure. Her exposed forearms were so white that they looked like they could be broken by the wind. It was very eye-catching. The female cultivator looked around and suddenly realized something. Little brother, isn't this a new spiritual land? Did the spirit spring awaken? If it was a new spiritual land, there would not be so many dilapidated buildings. Since there were dilapidated buildings, it meant that there had been people living here before. If there were people living in the wilderness, it could only be a spiritual land. Yes. Your luck is too good. You actually found a spiritual spring awakening. Of course, my luck is also pretty good. Hee, by the way, may I ask what little brother's name is? The female cultivator had a carefree personality, but she did not lack the gentleness of a woman. Lu Yi opened his mouth and said, Yi Lu. He had finally left the spirit stream battlefield. A new journey, a new beginning. Lu Yi did not want others to pay too much attention to him because of his name. The Jade Blood sect's Lu Yi had caused too many disturbances in the spirit stream battlefield. There were definitely people in the Cloud River battlefield who had heard of him. Therefore, Lu Yi had long since decided to change his name after entering the Cloud River battlefield. Oh, so it's fellow Taoist Yi. My name is Shin Kitten. Their eyes met, and the atmosphere was a bit stiff. The name Yi Lu did not sound like her real name. As for Shin Kitten, there was no doubt that it was a different approach to achieve the same result. It was common for cultivators who were not familiar with each other to report their names to each other on the Cloud River battlefield. Please sign the Heavenly Secrets contract. Lu Yi broke the silence. He knew that for cultivators who were not familiar with each other to form an alliance and share a spiritual land, they needed to sign a Heavenly Secrets contract. Only a Heavenly Secrets contract could let each other feel at ease. Without a Heavenly Secrets contract as a guarantee, no one knew whether the other party would secretly do something bad. However, Lu Yi had never experienced this kind of thing before, so he did not know how to list out the terms of the Heavenly Secrets contract. He simply handed this matter over to Shin Kitten so that he could observe and learn. Okay. Shin Kitten readily agreed. She muttered to herself for a while. Suddenly, a golden light fell from the sky. She reached out and grabbed the golden light, taking out a Heavenly Secrets contract. Lu Yi had seen his fourth senior martial brother do this on the golden light, so he was not surprised. Fellow Yi, take a look and see if it's suitable. If it's suitable, we'll sign it. Shin Kitten handed the Heavenly Secrets contract to Lu Yi. Lu Yi carefully examined it and found that the terms on it were very detailed, including each other's obligations and responsibilities, and the need to help each other. They were not allowed to harm the alliance, and they were not allowed to privately disclose the existence of this spiritual land. This was mainly to prevent each other from summoning familiar cultivators, such as Lu Yi. If fourth senior martial brother and Feng Yuechan were summoned, it would undoubtedly be very disadvantageous for Shin Kitten. She would always have to worry whether Lu Yi and the others would have any ideas about her. It was precisely because of these concerns that on the Cloud River battlefield, there was a temporary cooperation between the cultivators of the two camps. Shin Kitten even considerately reserved 2 or 3 positions for people. Because in such a small spiritual land, there were usually 3 to 5 people gathered together. Lu Yi and Shin Kitten only had 2 people, so the defensive power was somewhat weak. If there were a few more people, it would be easier to defend this spiritual land. There's one thing I need to tell you in advance. Lu Yi looked up at Shin Kitten. Go ahead. Shin Kitten nodded. I have already revealed the news of this spiritual land to a fellow disciple, but I don't know when he will be able to come over. Just one. Only one. That doesn't matter, as long as you don't casually reveal it later. If there's no problem, sign the divine contract. Lu Yi raised her hand and bit the tip of her finger, branding her fingerprint on the divine contract. Shin Kitten did the same. In the dark, there was a divine contract. Lu Yi put away the divine contract. After signing the divine contract, Shin Kitten's expression was undoubtedly much more relaxed. She was still a little wary of Lu Yi before. She looked around and asked, "Where do you live?" Lu Yi pointed to the room where she stayed last night. Shin Kitten pointed to the other room. "Then I live here." As she said this, she held the edge of her skirt with both hands and happily ran into the room, busily tidying up. Lu Yi continued to set up the array. It wasn't until evening that Shin Kitten finished her work. When she ran out, she looked dusty. She said to Lu Yi, "I'm going to find a place to take a bath." When Lu Yi opened the protective array, she rushed into the sky and disappeared in the blink of an eye. No one knew where she went. When Shin Kitten returned at night, Lu Yi had already entered the room to rest. After a day and night of accumulation, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the spiritual land had become very rich. When Lu Yi was in the spirit stream battlefield, she had also entered and exited many of the encampments of the core sections. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth in each of the encampments of the core sects was extremely rich, suitable for cultivators to cultivate in. In comparison, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the spiritual land was 2 or 3 times richer than any of the encampments of the core sects in the spirit stream battlefield. In such an environment, cultivators of the Cloud River realm would naturally be able to cultivate with twice the result with half the effort. Moreover, the situation of the spiritual land was not completely stable yet. After it stabilized, the concentration of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth would still increase. Of course, the efficiency of this kind of cultivation was not as good as using the spirit lot, but it was better in a stable long term. There were too many uncertain factors in snatching the spirit lot. Chapter 450. In the spirit land, Lu Yi casually sat on a rock with the mountain coiling saber beside him. He held a book in his hand and read it with great interest, stuffing a spirit pill into his mouth from time to time. The world energy in the spirit land had completely stabilized. According to Shin Xiao Mao's assessment, the grade of this spirit land was probably above C grade, not even close to B grade. Lu Yi was quite shocked because compared to the world energy of the sects in the spirit stream battlefield's core circle, the world energy in this spirit land was 3 to 4 times that of the sects in the core circle. If this was not B grade, then what kind of B grade was it? What about A grade spirit lands? It was no wonder that the cultivators of the Cloudy River battlefield were so desperate for spiritual lands. To most cultivators who relied on absorbing heaven and earth's spiritual chi as their main method of cultivation, having a good cultivation environment was too important. It was related to the speed of cultivation. In terms of experience in the Cloud River battlefield, Shin Xiao Mao was undoubtedly more experienced than Lu Yi, who was a newcomer. After spending 2 days together, Lu Yi learned a lot of common sense from her, including how to evaluate the grade of a spirit land. According to her, if the world energy of the sects in the spirit stream battlefield's core circle was used as a standard, then a D-grade spirit land was twice as rich as the sects in the spirit stream battlefield's core circle. 3 times was C grade, 4 times was B grade, and above 5 times was A grade. Judging by this standard, this spirit land was indeed between C grade and B grade. The reason why he was not cultivating in his room at this moment was mainly to wait for 1 or 2 lucky cultivators to pass by. Lu Yi and Shin Xiao Mao were the only 2 people in the spirit land. Lu Yi was a first-order Cloud River realm cultivator while Shin Xiao Mao was a fifth-order Cloud River realm cultivator. Even if Lu Yi had arranged a large number of spirit arrays in the spirit land, the defensive power was relatively weak, so they needed more manpower. On this point, Lu Yi and Shin Xiao Mao had reached an agreement. Generally speaking, such a small spirit land would gather 3 to 5 people. Lu Yi had already informed Giant Armor in advance, so they needed 1 or 2 more people to help. With the heavenly fate contract as a guarantee, the two of them could not privately gather cultivators they were familiar with. They could only wait here and see if they were lucky enough to meet one or two suitable candidates. According to Shin Xiao Mao's explanation, such a spirit land was neither high nor low grade, so there was no need to worry about being targeted by Cloud River Realm masters, because those masters were more than happy to occupy spirit lands of grade B or grade A. Such a spirit land between grade C and grade B was suitable for Cloud River Realm 4th or 5th order cultivators. Therefore, it wasn't necessarily a bad thing that the grade of a spirit land wasn't high. If this spirit land reached the grade of A grade, it might attract a Cloud River Realm 8th or 9th order master, and if that happened, the spirit land would definitely be lost. Only then did Lu Yi know that it was just a spiritual land, but there were actually so many things to pay attention to. This place was considered a desolate wilderness, so there were few people around. Lu Yi waited outside for a day, but did not see a single person. The next day, it was little Cat Shin's turn to be on duty outside. Having just entered the Cloud River battlefield, Lu Ye's main task was to improve his own cultivation. Only by improving his cultivation could he have enough power to protect himself. Therefore, he did not slack off in his cultivation these days. He swallowed a large number of source spirit pills, and with the rich world energy in the spirit land, the spirit energy river in his body grew stronger day by day. The cultivation of the Cloud River realm was to strengthen the spirit energy river. Every time one broke through a limit, their cultivation would increase by one level, until the spirit energy river filled the body and turned into a lake of spirit energy, a true lake. As he was cultivating, he suddenly heard Shin Xiao Mao's voice from outside, and at the same time, another person's voice sounded. Lu Yi put down the scroll in his hand and listened quietly. A moment later, he heard Shin Xiao Mao shout from outside, "Fellow Yi, come out and receive the guest." Lu Ye's face turned black when he heard this. He stood up and pushed the door open. He saw Shin Xiao Mao standing inside the array, and another figure standing outside the array's light curtain. It was also a woman with a weak expression and a tear mole under the corner of her eye. Shin Xiao Mao greeted warmly, "Fellow Yi, a homeless fellow Taoist has come. Her name is Wan Qingzhu." The woman outside the array curtsied gracefully. Her voice was soft and weak. She was the complete opposite of the loud and loud Shin kitten. "Yes, her name is Wan Qingzhu." Shin Xiao Mao nodded, "Fellow Yi, I've asked. Fellow Ruan is willing to stay. She's quite strong, a 4th order Cloud River realm cultivator. She meets our requirements." Wan Qingzhu put her hands in front of her lower abdomen and bowed gracefully again, "Thank you for not abandoning me. If you can take me in, I'll definitely advance and retreat with you." Lu Yi looked at her for a while and nodded slightly. He took out the array jade to open the protective array and let Wan Qingzhu in. He then took out the Heaven's secret contract he signed with Shin Xiao Mao and handed it over. "Take a look. If there's no problem, sign it." Wan Qingzhu took it and looked at it carefully for a while. She smiled slightly, "There's no problem." Saying so, she put a finger in her mouth and bit it, then pressed her fingerprint on the Heaven's secret contract. Lu Yi put away the Heaven's secret contract. Shin Xiao Mao clapped her hands and said, "In this way, we have 3 people. Including fellow Ye's fellow disciple who hasn't arrived yet, there are 4 people, so we can take in one more person at most. I think the last person should be left to fate. There's no need to force it. What do you two think?" "Okay." Lu Yi naturally had no opinion. Wan Qingzhu had just arrived, so she had no opinion. She smiled and said, "I'll listen to sister." Shin Xiao Mao smiled, "Then it's settled. It's fate that we can gather together. In the future, I'll have to rely on you too." Wan Qingzhu pursed her lips and smiled, "Sister, what are you saying? I'm the one who needs to rely on you." Lu Yi had already turned and entered the room to continue cultivating. Outside, Shin Xiao Mao said to Wan Qingzhu, "This person's personality is a bit dull, but he's not a bad person. You'll know when you get to know him. N. Sister, you just arrived. I'll take you to clean up the place. Where do you want to live? There are a few empty rooms here. I'll live here. Then I'll be your neighbor. Good. Inside the room, Lu Yi frowned. He felt that this woman was really strange. They had only known each other for a short time, but they were so familiar with each other. It was really strange. With Ruan Qingzhu in the spirit land, and her fourth-order Cloud River realm cultivation, the defensive power was naturally increased. Coupled with the many spirit arrays arranged by Lu Yi, if anyone wanted to take down this spirit land, they would have to have an absolute advantage in numbers or strength. Otherwise, 3 to 5 people wouldn't be enough. Days passed, and Lu Yi was immersed in cultivation, unable to extricate himself. The source spirit pills he brought from the sect were rapidly consumed. Suddenly, he found that the number of spirit pills he brought out was a bit low. The main reason was that he didn't expect the Cloud River battlefield to be like this. In the Spirit Stream battlefield, he could seize cultivation materials by killing enemies, but in the Cloud River battlefield, he hadn't killed a single person so far. This caused the spirit pills he brought out to be somewhat insufficient. The main way he cultivated was by swallowing spirit pills. If he didn't have enough spirit pills, how could he cultivate? Taking out the 10-minute map to check, he found that there was a Heavenly Secret Commerce Union headquarters 800 kilometers away. For the current him, it wasn't too far. If he flew back and forth, it would only take half a day. The next day, he walked out of his room and went to Shen Xiao Mao's room not far away. He raised his hand and knocked on the door. When the door opened, Shen Xiao Mao looked at him with a puzzled face. Is something the matter, fellow Yi? I need to go out. Oh. Shen Xiao Mao nodded, then go quickly and come back quickly. Lu Yi handed the jade slip that controlled the spirit array to her. When I'm not here, be careful. Don't worry, we will guard the home well. Shen Xiao Mao patted her chest, causing Lu Yi to inadvertently take a few more glances. Summoning the spirit boat, Lu Yi soared into the sky. The door next door opened, and Ruan Qingzhu poked her head out and asked curiously, where did fellow Yi go? Shen Xiao Mao shook her head, I didn't ask. He just said that he needed to go out. Don't worry about him, he's already so old. Ruan Qingzhu smiled. Flying on his artifact, he rushed all the way in the direction of the Heavenly Secret Commerce Alliance. After cultivating these days, although Lu Ye's cultivation hadn't broken through, the accumulation of his spirit energy had reached a limit. Lu Yi felt that he should be about to break through, and he was only one step away. However, even if he broke through, he would only be a second-order Cloud River realm cultivator. Looking at the entire Cloud River battlefield, his cultivation would still be at the bottom. However, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and rice must be eaten one bite at a time. In front of the Heavenly Secret Commerce Alliance, Lu Yi landed and walked in. He found a manager of the Commerce Alliance and spent a lot of spirit stones to buy a batch of source spirit pills, leaving only a few for backup. He didn't bring too many spirit stones with him from the sect. This time, if he ran out of pills, he would have to find a way to find cultivation materials. How to find them was a problem. Just as he was about to leave, the manager of the Commerce Alliance said, Tonight, the Commerce Alliance will be holding a spirit lot auction, and there will be a purple spirit lot. If this guest is interested, he might as well stay and take a look. Lu Yi was naturally interested. Spirit lots were of great help to his cultivation. He had obtained a purple and a green spirit lot before, and after using them to cultivate, he couldn't forget the feeling of rapid improvement. Unfortunately, heavenly spirit lots were things that could only be encountered by chance, and he hadn't encountered them these days. Spirit lot auctions used merit points as chips, and he still had more than 70,000 merit points. Looking at the entire Cloud River battlefield, there were only a few people who had more merit points than him. With so many merit points in his hands, he wasn't afraid of any opponents in the auction. When Lu Yi first entered the Cloud River battlefield a few days ago, he wanted to experience the spirit lot auction, but unfortunately, only 2 days had passed since the auction, and he didn't get the chance. This time, he finally had the chance to experience it, so he immediately decided to stay. He sent a message to Shen Little Cat, telling her that he would return a little later. Shen Little Cat quickly replied, indicating that she understood. She also reminded him to pay attention to his safety and so on. This made Lu Yi feel a little warm in this unfamiliar battlefield of the Cloud River. Chapter 451. He had left his mark with Shen Kitten and Ruan Qingzhu. After all, they had signed the heavenly secret contract and were trustworthy partners in attack and defense. After staying in the Merchant Union until night, the spirit lot auction began. It was different from the auction that Lu Yi had imagined. Every cultivator who participated in the auction received a small thing made of unknown material from the heavenly secret Merchant Union. This thing was about the length of a finger and looked like a jade finger. After being told how to use it by the manager of the Merchant Union, Lu Yi held the jade finger in his own compartment and immersed his mind in it. In an instant, the scene changed. It was somewhat similar to his experience every time he entered the heavenly secret treasure house. His mind suddenly appeared in a small sealed room. There was nothing else in the small room. There were only spirit lots floating in the air. There were more than 100 white ones, followed by more than a dozen green ones, a few blue ones, and the one in the middle was purple. It was unique. He didn't know which lucky person had snatched this purple spirit lot and didn't use it himself but took it out to auction. It was understandable. After all, cultivators consumed too many resources to cultivate. Many cultivators were very poor. This wouldn't change because of the increase in cultivation. There was a number next to each spirit lot. When Lu Yi paid attention, these numbers were constantly changing and increasing. After looking at it for a moment, Lu Yi understood that the changing numbers next to the spirit lot represented the price of this spirit lot. At this moment, there must be many cultivators like him who were immersed in this small space to participate in the auction. This method was very novel because all the auctioneers would not meet each other face to face. In this way, no one knew who was bidding. Even if someone won the best purple spirit stick, they did not have to worry about being targeted by someone with ulterior motives. Lu Yi vaguely guessed that this auction method had something to do with the auction chips being merit points. For cultivators, the only place where merit points could be used was the Heavenly Secret Treasure House. This should be an auction that Heavenly Secret was participating in. Otherwise, it would be impossible to use merit points. The value of the spirit lot was a problem. After thinking about it, Lu Yi sent a message to Shen Kitten and asked, "You're in the Heavenly Secret Merchant Union?" Shen Kitten sensed something. If it's a spirit lot, the value of a white spirit lot is usually around 200 merit points. It's not worth it if it's more than 220 merit points. You can convert the other spirit lots according to the ratio. Lu Yi expressed his gratitude. The white spiritual sign was worth around 200 merit points. The green one was 600 points, and the blue one was 1,800 points. The purple one cost 5,400 merit points. As for the golden one, Lu Yi had never seen it before. Each of them was worth 16,200 points. According to Kitten Shen, if the price rises by more than 10%, it wasn't worth it. He had a standard of measurement in his heart. At this moment, Lu Yi looked at the spirit lots again and found that it was indeed as Little Cat Shen said. Every single white spiritual stick. Their prices fluctuated around 200 yuan, while the green ones were around 600 yuan. The blue one was around 1,800. As for the only purple one at this moment, the price had already reached 5,500 points. Lu Yi naturally stared at the purple lot. He raised his hand and pointed at the purple lot. The spirit stick immediately emitted a light, and the price changed to 5,550 points. Seeing this scene, Lu Yeyin had a guess and headed towards another white spiritual marker. As the price changed, the white spirit stick also emitted a fine light. As expected, a spirit stick that was blooming with light. It represented that he had bid and was holding the bid. Those that did not bloom with light represented that he had lost the qualification to hold the bid or did not bid. After figuring this out, Lu Yi began to participate in the auction. In a short moment, a large number of spirit sticks emitted light. But very quickly the spirit sticks that were emitting light dimmed one by one. This was undoubtedly because someone had bid higher than him. He had more than 70,000 merit points. How could Lu Yi be afraid of anyone? He continued to bid. Time passed, and from time to time, a spirit stick disappeared into thin air. That meant that it had been bought by someone. Lu Yi had more than a dozen white spirit sticks. The price was below 220, which was still acceptable. A moment later, he had a few more green and 2 more blue ones. The spirit sticks disappeared one after another. In the end, only the purple spirit stick was left in the field. At this moment, the price of the purple spirit stick had reached 5,900 points. According to the experience taught by Kitten Shen, if this purple spirit stick exceeded 6,000 points, it would not be worth it. However, Lu Yi only wanted to improve his cultivation as soon as possible. Spending more merit points was actually acceptable. The purple spirit stick that was emitting a fine light suddenly dimmed, and the price became 5,950 points. This was undoubtedly because someone else had bid higher than Lu Yi. Lu Yi immediately increased the price again. After several rounds of exchanges with the unknown competitor, the price finally stabilized at 6,200 points. The other party did not bid anymore. It was unknown if it was beyond his ability or his expectations. After waiting for a moment, the purple spirit stick flashed 3 times and emitted a bright light. It was like this every time he bid for a spirit stick. Lu Yi immediately understood that this spirit stick was his. He reached out and took the purple spirit stick and put it into his storage space. After the auction ended, Lu Ye's mind left the small room. He checked his harvest. There were 15 white spirit sticks, 6 green spirit sticks, 2 blue spirit sticks, and 1 purple spirit stick. He had spent more than 16,800 merit points. Originally, he had more than 70,000 merit points, but now he only had a little more than 57,000 merit points left. Lu Yi was undoubtedly very satisfied with such a big harvest. With so many spirit sticks, he only needed to retreat for a few days when he returned to the spirit land. The second-order Cloud River realm was just around the corner. There was probably no hope for the third-order Cloud River realm, but it would save him a lot of time. Outside the Heavenly Secret Business Alliance, the moon was bright and the stars were few. For a Cloud River realm cultivator like Lu Yi, the night was not suitable for traveling. Staying in the Heavenly Secret Business Alliance for a night was the best choice. However, considering that he was not in the Spirit Land, the defensive power of the Spirit Land would be greatly reduced. Lu Yi could only set off overnight. The moonlight sprinkled down as the spirit boat flew. Hu Pe, who was squatting on Lu Ye's shoulder, was in high spirits. Ever since he learned the cultivation method of swallowing and spitting moonlight from Giant Jia, Hu Pe was the happiest in this kind of weather. Squatting on Lu Ye's shoulder, he breathed in moonlight at a speed visible to the naked eye. He sped all the way. While flying, Lu Yi suddenly saw a stream of light rushing towards him from the side. It was extremely fast. Looking at its posture, it was obviously coming towards him. Lu Ye's face darkened. He thought to himself that he was really unlucky. Although he did not know what the other party was planning, he could tell that the other party did not have good intentions just by looking at their posture. Judging from the other party's speed and faint spirit energy fluctuations, the other party was at least at the 7th or 8th order Cloud River realm. After coming into contact with a few Cloud River realm cultivators, Lu Yi had his own set of standards for judging the cultivation of others. He did not dare to say that he was completely correct, but at least the error was not big. I'm not his opponent. Lu Yi immediately changed his direction and hurriedly fled with the support of wind travel. The person behind him chased after him. The difference in strength was too great. Even with the enhancement of the wind travel spirit rune, the distance between them was slowly closing. Just as Lu Yi was considering whether to activate the flying wings, Yi's voice suddenly rang out, Lu Yi, something is wrong with that person. He seems to have fallen. Lu Yi looked back and found that the stream of light chasing him had become extremely dim. Within the stream of light, a figure was falling down. Although the figure was trying to stabilize himself, he was unable to do so. This guy is injured. Lu Yi stopped and watched as the other party fell to the ground in a sorry state. If he had not forcefully stabilized himself when he was close to the ground, he would have fallen to his death. If the other party was in good condition, Lu Yi would naturally run as far away as possible, but if the other party was seriously injured, there was no need to be so afraid. Now that he thought about it, perhaps the other party did not come to him with any malice, but wanted him to save him. Standing in place and pondering for a moment, Lu Yi rushed in the direction that the person fell. A moment later, he saw a figure covered in blood leaning against a tree. The other party was indeed seriously injured. There was a fist-sized hole in his chest, and his squirming internal organs could be faintly seen. The other party's injuries were not limited to this. The other party was covered in wounds from head to toe. At a glance, it was obvious that he had experienced a fierce battle. With such injuries, he won't survive. Lu Yi was often injured himself, so the severity of his injuries could be seen at a glance. Leaning against the tree, the person breathed softly. Faintly sensing something, he opened his eyes and looked into Lu Ye's eyes. He clenched the blood-stained sword in his hand and smiled sadly at Lu Yi. In an extremely weak voice, he said, "Fellow Taoist, you run really fast. Why are you chasing me?" Lu Yi did not understand. This guy looked like he was about to die, so why was he still chasing him? It made him think that the other party did not come with good intentions, so he was worried for nothing. The other party said, "I won't survive. It wasn't easy to meet someone, so I want to entrust you with something." "What is it?" "Help me transfer this sword to the Xinqing sect." The person raised the blood-stained sword in his hand. Xinqing sect, is that a sect from the Myriad Demon Ridge? Lu Ye's heart skipped a beat. If he remembered correctly, he had received safety money from this sect at the Spirit Stream battlefield. In other words, this sect was a third-rank sect and had its own station at the core of the Spirit Stream battlefield. "Fellow Taoist, are you from the Grand Heaven Alliance?" The person vaguely heard some information from Lu Ye's tone. Lu Yi was silent. "It doesn't matter. If you only want to transfer a sword, you can entrust it to the Tianji Business Alliance. There's no need for you to personally make a trip there. If you agree, all of my belongings, except for this sword, will be yours. To tell you the truth, I'm actually quite rich." "Sure." Lu Yi nodded. It was only a sword, and it was entrusted to the Tianji Business Alliance. It was not a difficult task. "That's good." The person relaxed and smiled bitterly. After cultivating for so long, it's all for naught. Lu Yi did not say anything. He had fallen to the other party's level, so he could not understand how the other party felt. However, the cultivation world had always been like this. Life and death. Chapter 452. Draw your sword. Under the tree, the person leaning against the trunk looked at Lu Yi calmly. Lu Yi looked at him quietly. "I'm a 7th order Cloud River Realm cultivator. Your cultivation shouldn't be too high. If you kill me, you can get at least a few hundred merit points. Consider it my final gift to fellow Taoist." In the Spirit Stream battlefield, killing enemies above one's realm would give a reward that increased exponentially. This rule was not only applicable in the Spirit Stream battlefield, but also in the Cloud River battlefield, and even in the entire cultivation world of the 9 states. Moreover, Cloud River Realm cultivators had a much higher number of merit points than Spirit Stream Realm cultivators. In the Spirit Stream realm, the number of merit points a cultivator had was determined by their cultivation level. For example, a 5th order Spirit Stream realm cultivator was worth 5 merit points. A 9th order Spirit Stream realm cultivator was worth 9 merit points. A 7th order Spirit Stream realm cultivator was worth 10 merit points, and a 9th order Spirit Stream realm cultivator was worth 12 merit points. At the Cloud River realm, the number of merit points increased greatly. A 1st order Cloud River realm cultivator was worth 20 merit points. Every time a cultivator reached a higher realm, the number of merit points would increase by 5. For example, the person in front of him who was about to die was a 7th order Cloud River realm cultivator, so the number of merit points he would get was 50. If Lu Yi killed him with his 1st order Cloud River realm cultivation, then he would be able to kill an enemy 6 minor realms above him. The number of merit points he would get would be 7 times the number of merit points, which was 350 merit points. It was undeniable that this was quite valuable to any cultivator. 350 merit points could buy 1.5 white spirit sticks. Killing enemies above one's realm would give more rewards, but in the Cloud River battlefield, there would be no punishment if a cultivator with a higher cultivation killed a cultivator with a lower cultivation. This was different from the Spirit Stream battlefield. In the Spirit Stream battlefield, if the strong bullied the weak, Heaven's Secret would deduct merit points as punishment. This was a kind of protection Heaven's Secret gave to cultivators with lower cultivation. Therefore, the Spirit Stream battlefield was divided into the outer ring, inner ring, and core ring. However, once a cultivator reached the Cloud River realm, they had already passed the initial stage of cultivation. It was always clear who they should provoke and who they should not provoke. If they provoked someone they should not provoke and were killed, then they deserved it. Tianji would only protect cultivators who had not been in the cultivation world for long. As for cultivators of the Cloud River tier, so he just let it go. There's no need for that. Since I've taken your money, I'll help you. I'll ask the Tianji Business Alliance to deliver your sword to the Xinxing clan. Lu Yi had been cultivating since then. He had killed many people from the Myriad Demon's Ridge. He naturally had no qualms about killing the cultivators of the Myriad Demon's Ridge. But if he really wanted to kill a person who was about to die without any chance of fighting back, he really couldn't bear to do it. The man forced a smile and said, "Fellow Taoist, please give me a quick death. Waiting for death like this is too torturous." Lu Yi was speechless. Only then did he slowly pull out the Pan Shan saber. The man let go of the sword in his hand. He closed his eyes. Lu Ye's spiritual power surged and he instantly broke through a distance of more than 100 feet. The Pan Mountain saber pierced straight into his chest. Perhaps it was because of the pain, the man's eyes suddenly widened. He instinctively raised his hand and grabbed Lu Ye's arm. He used a lot of force. Lu Yi felt the pain. But soon, that person's power dissipated. His raised hand fell down powerlessly, and the light in his eyes quickly dissipated. Lu Yi drew his knife. With a burst of hot blood, he saw that the man's eyes were still wide open. He raised his hand and closed his eyes. They were neither relatives nor friends, nor did they have any friendship. He killed the other party just like that. Lu Yi didn't have too many psychological fluctuations. It was just that he was also a cultivator, and the other party was already a 7th order Cloud River realm cultivator. He still couldn't avoid the fate of death on this Cloud River battlefield. This made Lu Yi feel the cruelty of the cultivation world. It also made him secretly reflect on himself when he walked on the Cloud River battlefield in the future. He had to be more careful. This was not the Spirit Stream battlefield where he could dominate. There were too many people here who could easily kill him. Yi flashed out. Standing beside Lu Yi, she seemed to be in a low mood. Lu Yi stepped forward and took off the storage bag from the man's waist. Then, he picked up the blood-stained sword in his hand and took out a cloth from his storage bag to wipe the blood off the sword. He didn't know what this sword meant to that cultivator. Before he died, he still had to find someone to send the sword back to his sect. At this moment, looking at it carefully, two small words were engraved on the hilt of the sword. Qing Yun. It seemed to be the name of the sword, but it also seemed to be the name of a person. Who knew? It was most likely the latter. This might be a token of love between him and a woman. Otherwise, there was no reason for him to be so persistent in sending the sword back. Lu Yi, can I bury him? Yi suddenly asked. After killing so many myriad demon ridge cultivators with Lu Yi, this was the first person she wanted to bury properly. Of course. No matter what, he had taken the other party's money. Burying him and letting him rest in peace was a piece of cake. However, Lu Yi didn't dare to stay in the same place for too long because this person was seriously injured. He didn't know if there would be strong enemies chasing after him, so he took the man's body and flew far away, only stopping when he reached a place with beautiful mountains and clear water. Together with Yi, they found a place and dug out a large hole. They buried the body and carefully filled it up. Yi bowed a few more times to this person's grave before returning to Hu Po's body. Originally, he wanted to rush back to the spiritual land, but now he had to run back to the Tianji Business Alliance. Along the way, Lu Yi studied the sword engraved with the two words, Qing Yun. He didn't find anything special about it. It was just a mid-grade spiritual weapon with 18 restrictions and was worth a few hundred contribution points. Lu Yi took out the other party's storage bag and tried to open the restriction lock. Speaking of which, ever since he entered the Cloud River battlefield, he found that his luck was quite good. Not long after he entered, he encountered the heavenly secret blessing. Moreover, the four-colored cloud coincidentally stopped above his head. Although the process of fighting for it was not satisfactory and he only obtained a green spiritual stick, the final result was surprising. Someone delivered a purple spiritual stick to his door, benefiting him for free. After that, he went to a place to rest. He also encountered the rare spirit spring awakening. He had picked up a spiritual land for free. Tonight was the same. He could have chosen to rest in the Tianji Business Alliance for the night before returning, but because he was worried about the spiritual land, he decided to travel through the night. Just as he was worrying about his cultivation resources, a person who was about to die appeared in front of him. Now, even the storage bag was in his hands. If he had decided to rest in the Tianji Business Alliance for the night, he would have missed out on such a good thing. He didn't have such good luck in the Spirit Stream battlefield. If it happened once or twice, it would be fine. The key was that he had only been in the Cloud River battlefield for 10 days, and he had encountered such good things several times. This was no longer something that could be explained by good luck. Lu Yi faintly suspected that it had something to do with the Tianji blessing when he advanced to the Cloud River realm. The Tianji blessing was so grand, but the benefits it brought to him were unsatisfactory. Lu Yi always felt that the Tianji blessing was all bark and no bite. But what if there were benefits that couldn't be seen? For example, luck. Luck was a very strange thing. Those with good luck could rise to the top, and those with bad luck couldn't even drink cold water. Lu Yi had always felt that his luck was mediocre, and there was no reason for it to suddenly change after entering the Cloud River battlefield. If it was related to the blessing of heavens that he had experienced before, then it would make sense. Of course, this was only Lu Ye's guess. As for whether it was true or not, it had to be verified in the future. With Lu Ye's current attainments in the Tao of Spirit patterns, it was really too easy to open the restriction lock on the storage bag. After a short while, the restriction lock was opened. Lu Yi searched through it. In the end, he found that the person was right. Compared to other Cloud River realm cultivators, this person was really quite rich. Lu Yi didn't know the name of some rare minerals and spirit flowers, but he didn't mention them for the time being. This person should have collected them during cultivation or obtained them from killing enemies. The reason for this deduction was because there were more than 10 mid-grade spirit tools in this person's storage bag. There were also quite a few flying spirit tools. A cultivator couldn't possibly use so many spirit tools. The only possibility was that he had obtained them from killing enemies. Of course, to Lu Yi, these things didn't have much use except for selling them to the Tianji Business Alliance in exchange for cultivation resources. The remaining things were useful to him. There were several bottles of healing pills and over 20 bottles of origin spirit pills. This person had the most things on him were spirit stones. Not only did he have mid-grade spirit stones, but he also had low-grade spirit stones, and there were even things that seemed to be high-grade spirit stones. There were so many of them, and the total amount was probably over 10,000 spirit stones. Lu Yi could be considered an experienced and knowledgeable person, but he really had never seen someone with such wealth. Disregarding everything else, 10,000 spirit stones was already a huge fortune. Even Lu Yi didn't have that. This could be considered to have solved Lu Ye's urgent problem. Originally, even if he bought a large amount of origin spirit pills from the Tianji Business Alliance, he wouldn't be able to last long. He was still thinking about where to go to find some cultivation resources. Now, it was all good. He didn't have to worry about this problem for a short time. After transferring all the useful things into the storage space on the back of his hand, Lu Yi took out a copper plate from the storage pouch. The copper plate was about the size of a palm and looked ordinary. Lu Yi examined it for a long time, but couldn't figure out what it was used for. It was only when he poured his spirit energy into it that the copper plate suddenly bloomed with a ray of light. Then, Lu Yi faintly felt a guiding force from the copper plate. That force seemed to be pointing him in a certain direction. This copper plate seemed to contain some kind of secret. Lu Yi didn't know what was in the direction the copper piece was pointing, but from the current situation, if he followed the direction it was pointing, he would definitely be able to find something. Holding the copper plate, Lu Yi fell into deep thought. After a short while, he put away the copper plate. No matter where the copper plate was pointing to, the most important thing for him now was to increase his cultivation. Only by increasing his cultivation would he have enough capital to protect himself and roam the world. In front of the Tianji Business Alliance, Lu Yi landed and leisurely walked in. He found a steward and asked him about the entrusted delivery of the sword. After learning the whole story, the steward gave Lu Yi a solution. The Tianji Business Alliance here temporarily took care of the longsword. At the same time, they sent a message to the Xinqing sect, asking the cultivators of the Xinqing sect to come here and ask for the spirit sword. Lu Yi naturally agreed, but he only had one condition, and that was to not reveal his information to anyone. Chapter 453. After going back and forth like this, more than half of the night had passed. Lu Yi was hesitating whether he should simply stay in the Tianji Business Alliance for the night when a message suddenly came from the battlefield imprint. Lu Yi checked and found that it was a message from Shin Kitten. Her tone was very anxious. "Hurry back, the spiritual land is in danger." Lu Yi hurriedly replied, but there was no reply from Shin Kitten. He realized that something was wrong and hurriedly walked out of the business alliance. He took out his spirit boat and soared into the sky. It was not until the time it took for an incense stick to burn that there was another message from Shin Kitten. Lu Yi exchanged a few words with her and roughly understood the whole story. His heart was filled with shock. He never thought that things would turn out like this. He sped all the way. It was not until dawn that he arrived at the location where he had agreed to meet Shin Kitten. He landed, but he did not see any trace of Shin Kitten. He sent a message, but there was no response. He searched around and saw a few drops of blood on the leaves beside him. Lu Yi frowned and realized that Shin Kitten might not be in a good situation. Just as Lu Yi did not know where to find this woman, who was squatting on his shoulder, suddenly jumped down and walked in a direction with light steps. Lu Yi hurriedly followed. A moment later, in front of a dark cave, Hoopa stopped and let out a cry. Lu Yi lowered his body and went in. When he reached the innermost part, the strong smell of blood immediately rushed into his nose. At the bottom of the cave, an enchanting figure was lying in a pool of blood. Her face was pale and her breathing was light. Who else could it be but Shin Kitten? No wonder she did not respond when he contacted her earlier. This woman's injuries did not seem light. At this moment, she had already entered a coma. However, even in a coma, she could also sense that someone was approaching. She frowned, as if she wanted to open her eyes, but her consciousness was difficult to wake up, and her face was filled with pain. Lu Ye's expression was solemn. He checked Shin Kitten's injuries and found that her injuries were indeed quite serious. If he left her alone, it was very likely that she would die here. He took out some healing items from his storage space. Lu Yi shouted, help her heal her injuries." "Okay." Yi flashed out of Hu Po's body. She got busy. Lu Yi walked out of the cave. He began to set up a formation around the cave. Tonight's events were too surprising. He did not expect that he had only left the spiritual land for a short while. The spiritual land actually changed owners, and little cat Shen was seriously injured. If this woman hadn't been vigilant enough, she would have been a corpse by now. Through the simple exchange with her before, Lu Yi roughly knew the whole story. However, he didn't have the time to ask about the details. It seemed that he could only wait for her to wake up. What was even more incomprehensible to him was, how did that person bypass the restrictions of the contract of divine secrets? Was there a loophole in the heavenly mystery contract? He set up a simple alarm and concealment formation. Lu Yi sat cross-legged at the entrance of the cave and took out the heavenly mystery contract. He carefully examined them one by one, but no matter how he looked at them, he didn't see anything that could be used in this divine secret contract. Many of the clauses on this divine secret contract were listed out by little cat Shen. This woman was a meticulous person. Various clauses echoed each other from afar, clearly organized and logically meticulous, completely eliminating the possibility of being used by others. He couldn't understand. However, through this experience, Lu Yi had witnessed the viciousness of the human heart. This was something he had never seen on the Spirit Stream battlefield. On the Spirit Stream battlefield, there were more head-on killings. There weren't many schemes and tricks. Yi walked out of the cave. "Can I live?" Lu Yi asked as he put away the heavenly mystery contract. "It shouldn't be a problem, but with that kind of injury, no matter what, I'll have to recuperate for at least 10 days to half a month. As long as I can live." Lu Yi nodded. The sky was already bright. Lu Yi ate a little and took out a white spirit stick. He squeezed it hard. No matter what, the most important thing was to improve his cultivation. One spirit stick after another was consumed. Until Lu Yi used up all the white spirit sticks and a green spirit stick, the long river of spirit power in his body suddenly shook, as if it had broken through some shackles. The scale suddenly expanded, and even the speed of the spirit power flowing in it became faster. Lu Yi felt comfortable all over. To be honest, the cultivation of the Cloud River realm had never been easy. Because the cultivation of the entire Cloud River realm was expanding the volume of the long river of spirit power in the body, so in the process of accumulating from quantitative to qualitative change, the long river of spirit power always gave people a sense of tension that had reached the limit. Until now, when he broke through, the tension suddenly disappeared. But this state was destined to not last long, because as Lu Yi continued to cultivate, the tension that had reached the limit would appear again until he broke through the next shackle. The second-order Cloud River realm. Lu Yi had never experienced such a rapid promotion since he started cultivating. Even when he was in the Spirit Stream realm, it took him 2 to 3 months on average to break through a small level. Most of the time, it took him about 3 months. But how long had it been since he broke through to the Cloud River realm? Only half a month. Breaking through a minor realm in half a month, if he could maintain this speed, it wouldn't even take him half a year to reach the ninth order Cloud River realm. Of course, this was unrealistic. The reason why he could cultivate so quickly was mainly because of the spirit sticks. This thing could greatly increase a cultivator's cultivation speed. In addition, Lu Yi didn't have high requirements for world energy, so he mainly consumed spirit pills. This was why he could achieve the miracle of breaking through to the next level in half a month. In his hand, there was a purple spirit stick, 2 blue spirit sticks, and 5 green spirit sticks. They could still help him break through to the second order Cloud River realm, but he shouldn't be able to reach the third order Cloud River realm. Since he was in the mood to cultivate, Lu Yi naturally continued to work hard. Time flew by, and 3 days later, Xin Xiaomao barely recovered. Although her injuries weren't completely healed, at least her life wasn't in danger and she could speak. The spirit sticks in Lu Ye's hand were also completely consumed. His cultivation didn't make any more breakthroughs, but he had taken a big step forward in the second order Cloud River realm, saving a lot of cultivation time. In the depths of the cave, Lu Yi sat cross-legged in front of Xin Xiaomao. The latter lowered her head. The cave was dim, so Lu Yi didn't notice that Xin Xiaomao's face was flushed. It couldn't be helped. Her clothes had been changed. Not only that, many parts of her body had been carefully bandaged, especially some important parts. Xin Xiaomao naturally thought that it was Lu Ye's doing. She didn't blame him. After all, he saved her life. She tried to convince herself that cultivators didn't care about such trivial things, but she couldn't help but think about something else. Lu Yi held a bowl of water in his hand and gave it to Xin Xiaomao to drink. He then took out a piece of dried meat and handed it to her. Xin Xiaomao lowered her head and chewed slowly. It wasn't until a long time later that Lu Yi spoke. "Tell me, what happened?" Xin Xiaomao recalled the events of that night and gritted her teeth. Wan Qingzhu planned it. That night, when Lu Yi was participating in the spirit stick auction at the Heavenly Secret Commerce Union, he still sent a message to Xin Xiaomao. At that time, nothing happened. It wasn't until the latter half of the night that Xin Xiaomao, who was cultivating, suddenly noticed something strange. Before she could investigate the situation, 2 strangers rushed into her house. Both of them weren't weak. In a big battle, Xin Xiaomao fought 1 against 2. How could she be their opponent? She was seriously injured and fled. Before she left, she was worried about Wan Qingzhu's safety and wanted to call her to escape together, but she found that this woman was standing outside quietly looking at her. In the end, Xin Xiaomao was chased by 3 people. If it weren't for a life-saving treasure in her hand, she would have died. In the end, she fled here and hid her whereabouts. After sending a message to Lu Yi, she fainted. When she woke up again, her injuries had already been treated. After that, she saw Lu Yi. What was certain now was that Wan Qingzhu was in cahoots with those 3 strangers. Limited by the contract on the Heavenly Secret Contract, Wan Qingzhu could only watch from the sidelines and couldn't make a move on Xin Xiaomao. Those 3 people were also let in by Wan Qingzhu. Because it was Wan Qingzhu's turn to be on duty in the latter half of the night, the jade pendant of the Great Array was in her hands. Otherwise, with the many arrays left behind by Lu Yi, those 3 people wouldn't have been able to sneak in quietly. I just don't understand how Wan Qingzhu avoided the restrictions of the Heavenly Secret Contract and contacted those 3 people. There was clearly a clause in the Heavenly Secret Contract that prohibited the existence and location of the Spirit Land. However, Wan Qingzhu avoided this clause and called over 3 helpers. Lu Yi had been thinking about this problem during his cultivation for the past few days. In the end, he could only think of one possibility. "You're right to say that she planned it," Lu Yi said. After signing the Heavenly Secret Contract, she can't privately disclose the location of the Spirit Land. But what if she leaked it before signing the Heavenly Secret Contract? Xin Xiaomao was shocked. "You mean, now that I think about it, when we first saw this woman that day, her hands were in front of her lower abdomen and tucked in her sleeves. I'm afraid that at that time, she had already used the battlefield imprint to send a message to the outside world. The reason why she waited for so many days before making a move was nothing more than waiting for a suitable opportunity. My leaving the spirit land was the best opportunity. Many of the arrays in the spirit land were arranged by Lu Yi. In Ruan Qingzhu's impression, Lu Yi was an array cultivator who was proficient in arrays. If he left, the power of the arrays in the spirit land would naturally be greatly reduced. Therefore, those people only needed to deal with Xin Xiaomao. The plan was perfect. If they hadn't underestimated Xin Xiaomao's background, Lu Yi would have seen a corpse at this moment. What a deep scheme. Xin Xiaomao was secretly horrified. Thinking back to her contact with Ruan Qingzhu these past few days, the other party affectionately called her sister. Normally, there was no clue at all. She became more and more afraid. Not to mention Lu Yi, who had just entered the Cloud River battlefield not long ago, even Xin Xiaomao, who had been in the Cloud River battlefield for a while, had never seen such a sinister human heart. Ruan Qingzhu, this woman, taught the two of them a solid lesson with practical actions. Chapter 454. Yi Lu, I'm sorry. In the cave, Xin Xiaomao suddenly spoke. I lost the spirit land because I wasn't careful enough. If I had discovered her sinister intentions earlier, we wouldn't have ended up here. On the Cloud River battlefield, spirit land was of great use to cultivators. Having a spirit land was of great help to one's cultivation. Xin Xiaomao was very glad that she met Lu Yi and was successfully taken in by him. She was already fantasizing about the scene of her cultivation rising steadily in the future. Unexpectedly, in just a few days, the spirit land was seized by sinister people, which made her feel annoyed and guilty. You're a cat, how can you be a fox's opponent? Don't think too much about it. It's just a spirit land. If you lose it, then lose it. Saving your life is the most important thing. Then we're just going to let it go. Xin Xiaomao was obviously unwilling. Heal your wounds first. Lu Yi glanced at her. Oh. A spirit land above 3rd grade and below 2nd grade wasn't too important to Lu Yi. It was good to have a spirit land, but without it, it wouldn't affect his cultivation. If those people fought openly and defeated him and Shin Kitten, then he would have nothing to say. The treasured land belonged to those who were capable. If his strength was not as good as others, what was there to complain about? Naturally, he had to work hard to improve himself and get back at them in the future. But taking advantage of his absence, they used some despicable means to seize the spirit land. This was a bit disgusting. Naturally, this matter wouldn't be settled so easily. What's more, Lu Yi was the first to discover the spirit land. The spirit array inside was also personally arranged by him. Now, there were many array flags and array bases left there. Not to mention other things, just a set of protective spirit arrays was worth 10 to 20,000 merit points. Leaving Xin Xiaomao in the cave to heal her wounds, Lu Yi took advantage of the night to summon the spirit boat and rushed into the sky. Xin Xiaomao was a 5th-order Cloud River realm cultivator. First, she was seriously injured in a 1 versus 2 battle. Finally, she escaped from the encirclement of 3 people. This showed that the opponent's cultivation wasn't too high. At most, they were 4th or 5th order. As for Ruan Qingzhu, she was only a 4th order, although Lu Yi was only a 2nd-order Cloud River realm cultivator right now. Since he began cultivating, most of the enemies he had encountered had higher cultivations than him. There were very few opponents with the same or lower cultivation, so even if he was facing a few 4th or 5th-order Cloud River realm cultivators, he wasn't afraid. Ever since he had entered the Cloudy River battlefield, he had yet to truly fight with anyone. Actually, he really wanted to know the standards of these people on the Cloudy River battlefield. Half an hour later, Lu Yi had arrived at the periphery of the spiritual land. At this moment, as far as the eye could see, the area where the spiritual land was located was empty. Even if someone passed by nearby, if they did not carefully investigate, they would not be able to detect the existence of the spiritual land. This was because Lu Yi had not only set up a defensive array with 16 array bases, but also a concealment array with concealment spirit inscriptions as its core. The spiritual land wasn't big, and with his current attainments in Array Dao, he could set up a concealment array to hide the entire spiritual land and avoid a lot of unnecessary trouble. If there hadn't been a mole this time, the spiritual land wouldn't have been so easily seized. Lu Yi observed silently for a moment before landing 3 kilometers away from the spiritual land. He then activated his concealment spirit inscriptions to cover his body, concealing his figure as he quietly approached the spiritual land. After an incense stick worth of time, Lu Yi arrived at the periphery of the spiritual land. It was already night time, so there wasn't much movement around, only some insects and frogs croaking. With the insight spirit inscription in his eyes, the hidden spiritual land was immediately exposed, and the light curtain of the defensive array was clearly imprinted in his eyes. There were no traces of the array being altered. Lu Yi didn't know if there were any array cultivators among them, but even if there were, their attainments in Array Dao should not be as good as his. Otherwise, they wouldn't have used the array he had set up. Since this array was set up by Lu Yi, he naturally knew the operation of the array and the location of its nodes. Lu Yi threw a few formation flags at the grand formation, and with a burst of spirit energy, he lifted a corner of the grand formation and walked in leisurely. As Lu Yi put away the array flags and concealed himself, a figure suddenly rushed out from one of the houses. This person was holding the array jade pendant and was looking around vigilantly. He was obviously the person in charge of guarding the array. Although Lu Ye's movements when he sneaked into the array were small, it still alarmed him. Noticing this person's movements, a few more people walked out of their houses, including Wan Qingzhu. "Junior Marshal Brother's son, what's going on?" asked a burly man with a big waist. The one who was called Junior Marshal Brother's son was the cultivator holding the array jade ring. He frowned and looked around. "The array seems a little strange." "What's strange?" the burly man asked again, looking more vigilant. Junior Marshal Brother's son shook his head. "I'm not sure, but the array fluctuated just now." He turned to look at a tall and thin man. "Junior Marshal Brother Cheng, check it." The tall and thin man, Junior Marshal Brother Cheng, replied, "Okay." Saying so, he stepped forward and took the array jade ring from Junior Marshal Brother's son's hand. He poured his spirit energy into it, adjusting the array's power while carefully inspecting it. From this person's actions, this person should be an array cultivator. While Junior Marshal Brother Cheng was inspecting the array, Junior Marshal Brother's son said, "Could it be that Xin Xiaomao has returned?" The burly man said, "That woman was seriously injured. Even if she didn't die, it would be impossible for her to recover so quickly. Compared to that woman, I'm more worried about that array cultivator." Junior Marshal Brother Cheng also said that the array cultivator's cultivation in the Tao of arrays is extraordinary. Junior Marshal Brother's son smiled. "Junior Marshal Sister Wan, didn't you say that the array cultivator was only a first-order Cloud River realm cultivator? He probably just entered the Cloud River battlefield. There's nothing to worry about." Because they had all signed the Heaven's secret contract, Lu Yi had told Wan Qingzhu and Xin Xiaomao about his cultivation. When they learned that Lu Yi was only a first-order Cloud River realm cultivator, the two women were obviously surprised. Now that they thought about it, Wan Qingzhu's surprise was somewhat meaningful. Xin Xiaomao's surprise was because when she fought with Lu Yi for the spirit lot, she had a brief fight with him. She didn't expect him to be a first-order Cloud River realm cultivator. On the side, Junior Marshal Brother Cheng carefully inspected the array and handed the jade slip to Cultivator Sunday. "There's no problem with the array. Perhaps there were some omissions when it was set up, causing the flow of spirit qi to become sluggish. Wait for me to inspect it again tomorrow." Hearing him say so, Cultivator's son felt relieved. The four people dispersed and went to their own rooms. Inside Cultivator Sun's room, he sat cross-legged, holding the array jade slip in his hand and calmly cultivating. With the jade slip in his hand, he could sense all abnormalities within the array. This was also what the person on duty had to do. Time passed quietly. At a certain moment, Cultivator Sun, who was immersed in his cultivation, suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. An inexplicable sense of danger enveloped him. His reaction wasn't slow. The moment he sensed that something was wrong, he opened his eyes. However, at that moment, an inexplicable force enveloped him, causing him to feel dizzy. When he came back to his senses, he had already appeared in a stone forest. He immediately looked around vigilantly. At a glance, he saw a figure 1,000 meters away. The person didn't look very old, about 17 or 18 years old. His head was slightly lowered, and his hand was on the hilt of his saber. Cultivator Sun immediately shouted, "Who is it?" Compared to inquiring about the other party's identity, he was more interested in knowing where this place was. He was clearly in the Spirit Land's room, but in the blink of an eye, he was actually here. It was really difficult for him to understand. This stone forest was naturally the space inside the Nine Worlds diagram. When the four people from the Spirit Land opened their rooms to investigate the situation, he quietly sneaked into Cultivator Sun's room. The reason why he chose this person was because the array jade slip was in his hand. Lu Yi needed to control the array jade slip immediately. Only then could he come and go freely. Otherwise, even if he was the one who set up the Spirit Land's array, it would take some effort for him to leave, just like when he sneaked in. The main reason why Lu Yi didn't take advantage of Cultivator Sun's cultivation to attack and kill him was because he couldn't guarantee that he could kill him in one strike. Moreover, even if he could kill him in one strike, he couldn't guarantee that Cultivator Sun wouldn't scream or make any other movements. Once that happened, the remaining three people would definitely rush over and the situation would be unfavorable for him. After all, Cultivator Sun's cultivation was higher than his, so using the Nine Worlds diagram was undoubtedly safer. Since Cultivator Sun was caught off guard, the Nine Worlds diagram took him in immediately. At this moment, in Cultivator Sun's room, Yi was controlling the Nine Worlds diagram. She didn't dare to use her spiritual power too violently to avoid exposing herself. As a result, she could only barely maintain the operation of the Nine Worlds diagram. She was unable to activate the Nine Worlds diagram to help Lu Yi. In this battle, Lu Yi could only rely on his own strength. Within the Nine Worlds diagram, Cultivator Sun shouted. When he didn't receive a response, he couldn't help but panic. Combined with his current situation, he recalled some rumors. Something that could instantly change a person's position was undoubtedly a very powerful treasure, such as a spirit artifact like an array diagram. If that was the case, then he should be inside an array diagram, but a Cloud River Realm cultivator possessing a spirit artifact. It was simply unimaginable. How powerful was his background to be able to possess a spirit artifact? One had to know that Cloud River Realm cultivators generally only used mid-rank spirit artifacts. While Cultivator Sun was still in shock, Lu Yi had already rushed towards him, spirit chi surging around his body. With Lu Ye's actions, his cultivation was undoubtedly exposed. Cultivator Sun flew into a rage, second-order Cloud River Realm. Where did this reckless boy come from? A mere second-order Cloud River Realm cultivator dared to provoke him. Although Cultivator Sun's background wasn't very strong, he was still a fourth-order Cloud River Realm cultivator. The fear in his heart was replaced by anger. Raising his hand, he sent several Imperial artifacts towards Lu Yi. This guy was also a weapon cultivator. However, in the next moment, a scene that made Cultivator Sun tremble with fear appeared. He saw the young man on the other side raise his hand, and 9 streams of light shot out, chasing after the stars and moon. Their speed was extremely fast, and the sound of them breaking through the air rang out incessantly. With a series of clanking sounds, Cultivator's son was surprised to find that his imperial artifacts were no match for his opponent, whether in terms of numbers or power. In just a short confrontation, he was completely at a disadvantage. The other side's 9 spirit artifacts broke through the blockade of Cultivator's son's spirit artifacts, spinning like a top as they shot towards him. Chapter 455. Within the 9 realms diagram, as Cultivator's son saw the 9 streams of light rushing towards him, he hastily summoned his spirit artifact. It was a long staff. With the long staff in his hand, this person continuously pushed and slashed, sending the 9 imperial equipment flying. However, the long staff was buzzing non-stop, and the hands holding the long staff were trembling slightly. The anger on his face was replaced by shock, and he immediately understood that he had encountered an incredible person. Originally, he didn't take Lu Yi seriously when he saw that he was only a second-order Cloud River Realm cultivator. However, after this exchange, he understood that this second-order Cloud River Realm cultivator's strength was far beyond his imagination. The Cloud River Realm was a realm where the gap between cultivators was huge. Some people reached the Cloud River Realm with 240 apertures, while others reached the Cloud River Realm with 360 apertures. In this realm, the difference in strength between cultivators of the same level was like heaven and earth. The sect that the cultivator surnamed Sun and the others came from was only at the 5th rank. None of them managed to break through to the Cloud River Realm with 360 acupoints. The best was the muscular man, who managed to break through to the Cloud River Realm with 312 acupoints. The cultivator surnamed Sun was even worse. He only managed to cultivate to the Spirit Stream Realm with 290 acupoints before reaching his limit. It was difficult for him to open any more spirit acupoints. On the Cloud River battlefield, there were many cultivators like him. On the contrary, there were very few cultivators like Lu Yi, who reached the Cloud River Realm with 360 apertures. Not to mention, Lu Yi was once the Spirit Stream Realm's top disciple and had received 4 baptisms from Heaven's Secret. When he reached the Cloud River Realm, he was blessed by Heaven's Secret. I'm not his opponent. This thought appeared in Cultivator's son's mind as soon as they clashed. As soon as he blocked the attacks of the 9 Imperial equipment, he was pushed back by the huge force. Before he could stand firm, Lu Yi had already arrived in front of him. A fiery red blade light flashed, and the long blade chopped down. Cultivator's son's spirit artifact staff blocked this attack, but it also forced him to lower his body. The huge impact almost caused his staff to fly out of his hand. Without any time to breathe, the fiery red blade flashed down continuously. Blade after blade, it was like a violent storm. After the mountain plate saber was promoted to a mid-grade spirit artifact, it was no doubt easier for Lu Yi to use. Cultivator's son clenched his teeth to resist. He gripped his staff with both hands and placed it in front of him. Ding ding dang 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 sounds rang out incessantly and sparks flew everywhere. His body was constantly lowered. Suddenly, a saber appeared. Lu Yi didn't slash downwards, but instead stabbed out. Cultivator's son saw this saber and wanted to block it, but his arms were already numb from the shock. How could he possibly block it? The long saber stabbed into Cultivator's son's shoulder and came out of his body. Cultivator's son screamed miserably. At the same time that Lu Yi pulled out his saber, he kicked out, sending the person in front of him flying and landing on the ground in a sorry state. Lu Yi didn't pursue Zhang Xian. Instead, he simply stood where he was with his saber pointed at the ground, a deep frown on his face. He was a little weak. He had originally thought that this would be a difficult battle, or at the very least an evenly matched fight. But as they fought, he discovered that this cultivator's surnamed Sun was far inferior to him, whether it was in strength or reaction speed. He understood that when the person in front of him broke through to the Cloud River Realm, the number of apertures he opened must not have exceeded 300. Otherwise, it would be impossible for a 4th-order Cloud River Realm cultivator to be so weak. Fellow Daoist, please wait. Cultivator's son fell to the ground and stood up in a sorry state. He put some distance between himself and Lu Yi in fear and asked in a panic, "Is fellow Taoist the helper that little cat Shen invited? If so, please spare my life. My senior and junior brothers will immediately leave this place and never come back again." Lu Yi didn't say anything. He just raised his hand and showed him his battlefield mark. Cultivator's son's face suddenly turned pale. Lu Yi understood that the other party was from the Myriad Demon Ridge camp. If the other party was from the Grand Heaven Alliance, Lu Yi wouldn't know whether to kill him or not. After all, he had received help from many Grand Heaven Alliance sects in the Spirit Stream battlefield. Since he was from the Myriad Demon Ridge, there was no problem. With the support of Windwalk, an afterimage appeared behind him. In the blink of an eye, Lu Yi had arrived in front of Cultivator's Sunday. He viciously chopped down with his saber, sending Cultivator's son flying through the air. Blood splattered everywhere as a miserable scream rang out. Without waiting for him to land, Lu Yi had already followed up with another slash. This time, the scream came to an abrupt end. With two thuds, a head and a headless corpse fell to the ground. Blood dyed the ground red. Lu Yi called out softly as he sheathed his saber. In the next instant, a repulsive force came from all around him. His vision blurred, and he appeared in Cultivator's son's room with a corpse beside him. Lu Yi bent down and put away the formation jade slit ring and Cultivator's son's storage pouch. There were 4 of them, and he had already killed one of them. There was only one sturdy man left. He was a formation cultivator, junior martial brother Cheng, and Ruan Qingzhu. How to kill them was a problem. Now, he couldn't easily sneak into their rooms. Even if he lured them out for a sneak attack, he would only be able to kill one of them at most. Among these people, junior martial brother Cheng should be the easiest to kill. Since he was a formation cultivator, he would definitely spend a lot of time on the Tao of formations. His own strength might not be very strong. The sturdy man should be the hardest to kill. This guy's chi and blood were vigorous. He was clearly a body cultivator. Yi and Hoopa should be able to tie down one of them for a while if they joined forces. Then, he had to kill 2 of them in the shortest time possible. Unfortunately, some of the formations he had set up in this spiritual land had already been broken. Otherwise, with the help of the formations, it wouldn't be a problem for him to fight 1 against 3. With a vague plan in his heart, Lu Yi quietly pushed open the door and flashed out. Hoopa continued to stay in the room. Everything had gone smoothly just now, so Cultivator's son's death didn't alarm anyone. Under the activation of the concealment spirit pattern, Lu Yi was like a ghost as he silently arrived in front of the sturdy man's room. Since this person was the hardest to kill, he would start with him. As long as he could get rid of this person, the remaining 2 wouldn't be a problem. Otherwise, if this person joined forces with the others, the situation would only be worse. After hiding well, Lu Yi was about to activate the formation jade slit ring in his hand to make some noise to attract the enemy to come out and investigate. However, he heard a rumbling sound coming from outside the formation. Looking up, he saw a familiar figure standing in the sky. Who else could it be but Shin Kitten? She wasn't recuperating in the cave, but had come here for some reason. Looking at her expression, there was a faint trace of anxiety. The commotion just now was caused by her attacking the protective formation. Lu Yi took the opportunity to activate the formation jade slit ring and closed the entire protective formation. Outside the spirit array, after Shin Kitten made her move, she watched as the protective formation covering the entire spirit land suddenly dissipated. The spirit land that was originally covered by the spirit array also appeared clearly in her field of vision. She had been recuperating in the cave before, but when she woke up, she didn't see any trace of Lu Yi. She thought that he had left her behind, but thinking about it carefully, it wasn't very likely. If Lu Yi really didn't want to care about her, he didn't have to save her and guard her for 3 days. Recalling the conversation with Lu Yi before, Shin Kitten vaguely sensed Lu Ye's intentions. Ignoring her injuries, she hurried to the spirit land to investigate. She didn't know if things were as she had guessed. If they were, Lu Yi might have come to the spirit land, but Lu Yi was just a first-order Cloud River realm cultivator. His strength was quite low, so if he made a mistake, he might have been captured. That was why she attacked the protective formation to test it. No matter what, she and Lu Yi had signed a Heaven's secret contract to attack and defend together. However, something happened that shocked her. She just casually attacked and the protective formation disappeared. There were no traces of a fight, nor was there any trace of Yi Lu. Shen Kitten secretly cursed and wanted to leave quickly. But the movement was so big that it had alarmed the 3 people in the spirit land. The door was quickly opened and 3 figures rushed out. In the next moment, the burly man's vitality erupted as he turned around and punched out. A saber light flashed and an arm flew out, blood spurting out. Lu Yi, who had hidden himself, appeared, holding the mountain coiling saber, his eyes drooping. The burly man staggered back a few steps, holding his severed arm, his eyes filled with disbelief. He didn't expect that someone would ambush him at the door of his room. If it weren't for his powerful perception, this saber strike would have killed him on the spot. Even so, one of his arms was cut off. Yi Lu. Shen Kitten, who had not yet recovered from her injuries, and Ruan Qingzhu, who saw this scene, exclaimed in unison. Junior brother Cheng was stunned for a moment before he reacted. His body flashed and he was about to rush towards Lu Yi, but Shen Kitten had already pounced on him and intercepted him. In terms of strength, Shen Kitten was undoubtedly stronger than junior brother Cheng. If this woman wasn't lying, she was also a master who had once been on the spirit stream list. But at this moment, her injuries had not yet healed and her strength had been reduced. After a short exchange, she was not a match for junior brother Cheng, who was an array cultivator. At this time, Lu Yi held the mountain coiling saber and wrapped the burly man in a fiery red saber light. Step by step, he pressed forward, not showing any mercy. If the other party was in good condition, this battle might have been a bit more difficult. The burly man's cultivation was at the 5th order Cloud River realm and he was much stronger than cultivator Sunday. However, he had lost an arm to Lu Yi and could not maintain the great cycle of his spirit energy, so his strength was greatly reduced. Facing Lu Ye's storm-like saber strikes, he could only dodge. On the other side, Hoopa had already rushed out of Cultivator Sun's room and revealed his true body, fiercely pouncing on Ruan Qingzhu. Yi did not appear for the time being, secretly looking for an opportunity to give Ruan Qingzhu a fatal blow. Screams rang out and blood splattered. Even if the burly man desperately summoned his spirit energy and blood qi, he could not resist Lu Ye's slashes. In just a moment, his body had been slashed more than a dozen times, blood and flesh flying everywhere. Junior brother Cheng and Ruan Qingzhu were both shocked. When he was in the spirit stream realm, Yang Kai was only able to send out 3 slashes while in his flash state, but now that he was in the 5th order Cloud River realm, he could send out 5 slashes, and this was not his limit. If necessary, he could send out 1 more. However, every time he used this saber technique, the after effects were not small. Therefore, Lu Yi generally did not use it unless it was absolutely necessary. 3 breaths later, Lu Yi stood up and lifted his eyes to look at the other 2 battlefields. One of them caused him to be stunned. Hoopa was currently facing Ruan Qingzhu, and he was roaring at her with his mouth wide open. Ruan Qingzhu was bleeding from her 7 orifices, and her face was pale. She seemed to be severely injured. Did he make a move? However, Lu Yi did not feel the fluctuations of a technique, and Yi did not show any signs of appearing. It was impossible for Hoopa alone to beat a 4th order Cloud River realm cultivator into such a state. What's going on? He could not figure it out. However, he did not have the time to think about it. In the other battlefield, Shen Xiaomao was struggling to resist junior brother Cheng. There were faint traces of blood on her body, and that was the result of her bandaged wounds splitting open. Originally, junior brother Cheng had the upper hand, but the death of the burly man and Wan Qingzhu's defeat made him panic. Seeing Lu Yi looking at him, junior brother Cheng did not dare to stay any longer. He immediately fainted and forced Shin Xiao Mao to retreat. His figure was about to soar into the sky. However, it was still too late. The weapon box at Lu Ye's waist buzzed, and 9 spirit artifacts shot out, sealing the space that junior brother Cheng could escape. Lu Yi himself rushed forward with his saber. Junior brother Cheng's strength was not very good to begin with. He was about the same as the cultivator surname's son that Lu Yi had killed before. Against the heavily injured Shin Xiao Mao, he was still able to hold his own. Now that Lu Yi was added to the mix, how could he be a match? Even escaping became an extravagant hope. A moment later, the screaming junior brother Cheng also fell into a pool of blood. His body twitched a few times, and he stopped breathing. Only then did Lu Yi turn around and walk towards Wan Qingzhu. Seeing him walk over, Wan Qingzhu, who was leaning against a courtyard wall, was very flustered. She instinctively wanted to escape, but her injuries seemed to be not light. After struggling for a while, she could not get up at all. Shin Xiao Mao, who was covered in blood, also followed. The two of them, one on the left and one on the right, looked down at the fellow Taoist who was their ally a few days ago. Wan Qingzhu still looked pitiful. She looked at Shin Xiao Mao with tears in her eyes and said softly, "Sister, don't call me that. You don't deserve it." Shin Xiao Mao's eyes were cold. 3 days ago, if she did not have some ability, she would have been killed by those people. At this moment, how could she have any sympathy? Wan Qingzhu smiled. "Okay, then I won't call you sister. This time, we miscalculated, but so what? We have signed the divine contract. You can't hurt me or kill me. Aren't you going to let me go?" Shin Xiao Mao gritted her teeth, her face full of unwillingness. Lu Yi lowered his head and checked his battlefield mark. A message came. It was from Yi, who was hiding in the dark. After reading the message, Lu Yi understood why Wan Qingzhu was like this. This woman was suffering from a backlash from the divine contract. In the divine contract that the three of them signed, there was indeed a clause that forbade them from hurting each other. Hoopa was Lu Ye's pet, so this clause was naturally applicable. So when Hoopa jumped out to stop Wan Qingzhu and Wan Qingzhu attacked him, she immediately suffered a backlash from the divine contract. This backlash seemed to be very serious. Otherwise, a fourth-order Cloud River Realm cultivator would not be unable to even run away. With Hoopa's strength, how could he beat Wan Qingzhu to such a state? It turned out that it was a backlash from the divine contract. Looking at it this way, it was a wise decision to let Hoopa fight Wan Qingzhu. But what Lu Yi did not understand was why Hoopa did not suffer a backlash. The divine contract's restrictions should be two-way. Wan Qingzhu attacked him and suffered a backlash, so should Hoopa. But now, it seemed that only Wan Qingzhu suffered a backlash. Lu Yi sent a message to Yi, and after receiving a reply, he raised his brow. "If the two of you have nothing else to say, then I'll take my leave." Wan Qingzhu looked fearless and was about to stand up. Although the backlash was severe, she had recovered some strength after gasping for breath for such a long time. Lu Yi stepped forward and unsheathed his mountain ascending saber, a fiery red light flashing. "No!" Shin Xiao Mao shouted. She had been in the Cloud River battlefield for much longer than Lu Yi and was well aware of the horror of a backlash from the divine contract. It could be said that after signing the divine contract, the three of them could no longer hurt each other. However, Lu Ye's saber was so fast that by the time she shouted those words, Lu Yi had already shaken off the blood on his saber and sheathed it. In front of him, Wan Qingzhu's eyes filled with horror. Her body, which had just stood up, stiffened. She stretched out her hands to cover her neck, blood flowing from between her fingers. She looked at Lu Yi in disbelief. She really did not expect that under the divine contract's restrictions, Yi Lu would dare to attack her so decisively. Indeed, he would die under this saber, but would Sixth Leaf survive? I will wait for you, on the road to the Yellow Springs. After Wan Qingzhu finished speaking, she fell straight down, her head separated from her body. Shen Xiaomao still looked at Lu Yi in horror, afraid that something bad would happen to Lu Yi. But after waiting for a long time, Lu Yi did not show any signs of a backlash. This stunned Shen Xiaomao. She hesitated and said, You're fine. It did not make sense. She was the one who laid out the terms on the divine contract. The people who signed the divine contract could not hurt each other. Yi Lu killed Wan Qingzhu like this. How could he not be affected by the divine contract's backlash? But in fact, the young man standing beside her was indeed safe and sound. Lu Yi only dared to slash out with his saber after asking Yi. Yi had been hiding in the dark, so she saw everything clearly. In the confrontation between Hupa and Wan Qingzhu, only the latter was affected by the backlash. Hupa was completely fine. Since Hupa would not be affected by the backlash when he attacked Wan Qingzhu, Lu Yi felt that his master should not be affected by the backlash either. As for why, Lu Yi did not know. He only vaguely felt that it had something to do with the divine blessing. No matter what, Wan Qingzhu had already done something that destroyed the common interests of the three people. Although she did not make a move against Shen Little Cat and Lu Yi from the beginning to the end, those three people were her fellow disciples. She had entered this spiritual land with evil intentions. She was not benevolent, so she could not blame others for being unjust. If it was anyone else, they might not be able to do anything to Wan Qingzhu and could only let her go. But Lu Yi was someone who had received the divine blessing. In front of the fair and just divine blessing, he would more or less have some special treatment. Yi Lu, are you really okay? Shen Xiaomao was still confirming Lu Ye's condition. I'm tired, Lu Yi said as he walked to the side and found a stone to sit down, putting the mountain blade aside. Although today's battle did not last long, using the continuous slash-sword technique in the state of one flash at the end had taken a lot of toll on him. His right arm was swollen at the moment and would need 2 or 3 days to recover. This could be considered Lu Ye's first real battle since entering the Cloud River battlefield. Thinking back to the confrontation with the enemy, he suddenly realized that with his current foundation and strength, he could kill any ordinary 4th or 5th order cultivator. If anyone underestimated him because of his second-order Cloud River realm cultivation, they would definitely suffer a loss. He had long heard that the gap in strength between the Cloud River realm was huge. Now it seemed that it was true. In the battle with the burly man, he did not need to use his trump card. He only wanted to end the battle quickly to avoid any complications. Yi Lu, if you feel uncomfortable anywhere, don't hide it from me. You must tell me. Shen Xiaomao was worried and reminded him again. Lu Yi glanced at her, take care of yourself first. Chapter 457. The spirit land that had changed owners for 3 days was reclaimed. Lu Yi and Shen Xiaomao were recuperating. The previous battle had made Shen Xiaomao's already serious injuries even worse. After this battle, she didn't know how long it would take for her to recover. Lu Ye's situation was better. He only suffered from the after-effects of using his saber technique and recovered in 2 days. He rearranged the various spirit arrays that had been destroyed and closed before. After the incident with Wan Qingzhu, neither of them had the idea of recruiting new members for the time being. Shen Xiaomao healed while Lu Yi cultivated in peace. However, after the experience of using the spirit lot to improve his cultivation, Lu Yi always felt that his current cultivation speed was a bit slow. There was a saying, I can endure the darkness until I see the light. It was the most appropriate to describe Lu Ye's mood at the moment. He wasn't unaware of the taboo of cultivation, but he couldn't help but recall the feeling of using the spirit lot to quickly improve his cultivation. Shen Xiaomao's injuries gradually improved and she could go out. After the previous incident, Shen Xiaomao's impression of Lu Yi had undoubtedly changed a lot. She thought that Yi Lu was just a newly promoted first-order Cloud River Realm cultivator, but she didn't expect that he had quietly broken through to the second order and had the ability to kill enemies above his realm. Several fourth or fifth order Cloud River Realm cultivators were killed by him. Shen Xiaomao understood that with such a powerful background, Yi Lu was definitely not an unknown person when he was in the spirit stream realm. What she didn't understand in particular was that Yi Lu didn't suffer any backlash after killing Wan Qingzhu even though he had clearly signed the Heaven's secret contract. During the past few days of recuperation, she had been recalling the various terms she had listed, but she couldn't find any loopholes in them. She thought to herself that Yi Lu might have some special means to avoid being monitored by the Heaven's secret contract. She wasn't too worried that he would use this method to deal with her. If Yi Lu really wanted to deal with her, he wouldn't have saved her before. Although they hadn't known each other for long, Shen Xiaomao felt that Yi Lu was still a trustworthy person. 5 days later, Shen Xiaomao personally cooked some good dishes to entertain Lu Yi. It was to celebrate the two of them regaining the spirit land and to thank Lu Yi for avenging her. At the dining table, Shen Kitten raised her glass frequently. She drank until her little face was red. She seemed to be in a good mood. Not only did she drink, but she also toasted to Lu Yi. Lu Yi drank until he had a big headache. In the end, he simply ignored this woman and focused on eating. Yi Lu, let me ask you something. Shen Kitten's eyes were blurred. Speak. Why didn't you tell me when you came to attack the spiritual land? Are you afraid that I'll be in danger? Lu Yi raised her eyes to look at her. She really wanted to ask, don't you know what the situation was at that time? But before he could say anything, Shen Little Cat had already planted her head on the table. For a fifth-order Cloud River Realm cultivator to be able to get him drunk, was truly a miracle. After a short while, Lu Yi was full of wine and food. He stood up and walked to Shen Xiaomao's side to push her. The woman just waved her hand casually and mumbled something in her mouth. After that, there was no movement. Lu Yi frowned and put his hand on Shen Kitten's waist. He grabbed her forcefully and lifted her up. He carried her back to his room like a bag and threw her on the bed. Then, he left and closed the door. In the dark room, Shen Xiaomao suddenly opened her eyes. Her drunken eyes flashed with a trace of clarity. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly as she whispered softly, "He's reliable." Although it had been a few days, she still couldn't forget the scene when she woke up in the cave a few days ago. All the wounds on her body were carefully bandaged, including some places that were difficult to talk about. Although she kept convincing herself these days that he was saving her life, she was still a woman after all. She would always care about such things. She didn't know what happened when she was unconscious. Today, he deliberately got her drunk just to test her. The result proved that although Yi Lu's temperament was a little dull, he was still a reliable person. From this, it could be seen that he didn't do anything unnecessary when he bandaged her wounds. Her mood was even better. In Lu Ye's room, Yi came out of Hu Po's body and sat in front of Lu Yi. Stare. What? Lu Yi was puzzled. That woman did it on purpose. Yi's cheeks puffed up. What on purpose? She deliberately got herself drunk, and she wasn't completely drunk. How did you know? Lu Yi was surprised. Anyway, it's like that. She. Yi clenched her small fists and her face turned red. She forced out a sentence, "She was seducing you." Lu Yi was surprised. Really? Yes. Yi nodded her head like a chicken pecking rice. Lu Yi, I'm telling you, don't drink alone with a woman in the future. There are many bad women out there. In short, you have to be careful. After saying that, she gritted her teeth. Damn it, if I had known, I would have let her die in that cave. Why did I save her? Yes, I know. Be careful next time. Lu Yi nodded seriously. In her heart, she was annoyed. If she had known, she would have pushed the boat with the current. Shen Xiaomao had a big chest. The next day, Lu Yi was cultivating and reading in her room when she suddenly heard Shen Xiaomao's exclamation from outside. Who is it? It was followed by the sound of a big fight. When Lu Yi pushed open the door and walked out, she saw Shen Xiaomao and Yi Yi facing each other from a distance. Both women looked vigilant. Lu Yi was stunned. Yi Yi didn't want to show herself in front of others. Usually, she would only show herself in front of people she was familiar with or when she was alone with herself. Because Yi Yi always felt that she was Lu Ye's trump card and would not be easily exposed. But this time, she actually took the initiative to show herself in front of Shen Xiaomao. It seemed that what happened last night made her very vigilant. Yi Lu, she's a magic cultivator. Shen Xiaomao hurriedly reminded Lu Yi, but she didn't pay too much attention to it. After all, from the situation of the fight, Yi Yi's strength was not as good as hers. But what made Shen Xiaomao puzzled was how this little girl sneaked into the spiritual land without anyone noticing. In the past few days, because she had not recovered from her injuries, Lu Yi was in charge of controlling the array jade pendant and was responsible for guarding. The array itself was set up by Lu Yi, so there was no reason for someone to sneak in without noticing. This is my sister. Yi. Lu Yi stood at the door and introduced. She changed her name and surname, so did Yi. Shen Xiaomao wondered if she had heard wrongly. She looked at Yi and then at Lu Yi. When he nodded in confirmation, she put away her hostility and smiled awkwardly. So it's your sister. I thought someone had sneaked into the spiritual land. She turned to look at Yi. Sister Yi. Sister has been rude. Humph. Yi turned her head arrogantly and walked into Lu Ye's house. Shen Xiaomao, she suddenly realized that Yi Lu's sister didn't seem to be very easy to get along with. What made Shen Xiaomao even more puzzled was how Yi Lu's sister found this place. According to the agreement on the Tianji contract, neither party was allowed to reveal the existence of the spiritual land to others in private. This little girl named Yi shouldn't have come here. Did Yi Lu really have some special means to avoid the surveillance of the Tianji? But what kind of magical means was this? Shen Kitten realized that her intuition was right. Sixth Ye's younger sister was indeed difficult to get along with. She could clearly feel that the little girl had a lot of hostility towards her. Occasionally, when they met, the little girl would ignore her when she talked to her. What Shen Kitten was concerned about was that the little girl was actually living in the same room as Yi Lu. She understood that this was probably not a biological sister. No wonder she was so hostile towards her. After realizing the truth of the matter, Shen Kitten also paid attention to it. In the room, Lu Yi said earnestly, don't be so obvious. We're both living under the same roof, so we'll see each other often. What? I want to keep an eye on you for Sister Huaxi. Yi said confidently. What does that have to do with Huaxi? Lu Yi was speechless. How is it not related to Sister Huaxi? You and Sister Huaxi even have a child. Lu Yi was shocked. Don't talk nonsense. Your Sister Huaxi and I are innocent. You said it yourselves. Sister Huaxi even called you the father of the child. You didn't even refute it. Yi shook her head at Lu Yi proudly. Lu Yi sighed sadly and looked out the window. Why isn't Giant Armor here yet? She had sent a message to Giant Armor when she entered the Cloudy River battlefield. In the end, it had been almost 20 days and Giant Armor was still nowhere to be seen. If she had known that he wouldn't come over for such a long time, she would have just asked for a Tianji pillar in the spiritual land to let him return to Jouzhou. After occupying the spiritual land, one could ask for a Tianji pillar. However, the cost was very high. Lu Yi had inquired before. A Tianji pillar cost 20,000 merit points. Moreover, it was the kind that couldn't be taken away. In other words, if the spiritual land was occupied by someone, the 20,000 merit points would be for the other party to spend. However, if there was a Tianji pillar in the spiritual land, it would be convenient to do some things, such as buying and selling things from the Tianji treasure house. Generally speaking, in the Cloudy River battlefield, only large or medium-sized spiritual lands that could accommodate dozens or more people would ask for a Tianji pillar. It was convenient for cultivators to travel between Jiuzhou and the Cloudy River battlefield. Moreover, if the 20,000 merit points were shared among dozens of people, each person wouldn't have to bear too much. For the small spiritual lands occupied by Lu Yi and Shen Kitten, it wasn't worth it to ask for a Tianji pillar. The cost was too high for two people to share. Moreover, they might face the problem of spiritual power exhaustion. Once the spiritual power was exhausted, the spiritual land would be wasted. Ever since Yi appeared, Shen Kitten lived in seclusion. She often couldn't be seen for a day or two. Until one day, the earth trembled and buzzed incessantly. It was as if thunder was swimming underground. The earth shook and the mountains shook. Lu Yi thought that someone was attacking the spiritual land and quickly jumped out of the house to investigate. However, there was no one outside the formation. The door of the room next to him was also pushed open. Shen Kitten's enchanting figure appeared. She asked with a serious expression, "What's wrong?" Lu Yi shook his head, indicating that he didn't know. This abnormality lasted for a long time before it suddenly calmed down. Shen Kitten seemed to have sensed something and rushed into the sky. She stood in mid-air and looked into the distance. Then, she became excited and shouted down, "Yi Lu, the opportunity is here." Chapter 458. The Spirit Stream battlefield, the Cloud River battlefield, and even the entire 9 states had many opportunities. It all depended on whether the cultivators could encounter them. In comparison, the opportunities in the Spirit Stream battlefield were mostly inheritances, while the opportunities in the Cloud River battlefield were mainly to increase a cultivator's strength. The Heavenly Spirit lot was also a kind of opportunity. Almost every day, there would be a Heavenly Spirit lot in every corner of the Cloud River battlefield. This was also the opportunity that cultivators welcomed the most because they did not need to take too much risk to have the opportunity to obtain tangible benefits. However, the Heavenly Spirit lot was not the only kind of opportunity. There were also various mystic realms. The Spirit Stream battlefield also had mystic realms. The Immortal Essence City that Lu Yi had been to before was a mystic realm. There, he had obtained a large amount of soul-cleansing water. There were many mystic realms in the Cloud River battlefield. Some mystic realms even opened at a fixed time and location. Every time this happened, a large number of cultivators would gather outside the mystic realms. There were also some mystic realms that required cultivators to use special methods to open. There were also some that appeared randomly in various parts of the Cloud River battlefield. Those who were fated could enter. For example, in front of him, at the end of his field of vision, a pillar of light shot into the sky, piercing through the clouds. Even from hundreds of miles away, it could be seen clearly. In the sky above the spiritual land, Lu Yi and Shen Kitten stood side by side, looking at the pillar of light that pierced through the sky. They knew that the commotion just now was caused by this pillar of light. What is this? Although Lu Yi had bought a lot of information about the Cloud River battlefield from the Tianji Business Alliance, he had not been in the Cloud River battlefield for long. Naturally, he was not as knowledgeable as Shen Kitten. It should be a kind of mystic realm. I'm not sure what kind it is exactly. However, no matter what kind it is, there are still benefits. Let's go take a look. But the spiritual land, don't worry about it. There's a concealment array. If ordinary people don't check carefully, they won't be able to find it. Even if we lose it, we can just snatch it back later. As Lu Yi said this, he called out to the people below. Yi and Hoopa hurriedly followed and took out the spirit boat. They turned into a stream of light and flew in the direction of the pillar of light. Shen Kitten could only follow. She was also very interested in the pillar of light over there, but she could not bear to leave the spiritual land behind. For a cultivator like her who mainly relied on absorbing the spirit chi of heaven and earth, a spiritual land was stable. It was very important to have a stable spiritual land. Even if the spiritual land was not B grade, it could still save her a lot of cultivation time. However, this was not the case for Lu Yi. To him, the spiritual land was extremely precious. It wasn't very useful, but it was the icing on the cake. It didn't matter if he lost it. Last time, if Wan Qingzhu and the others had not been so despicable, Lu Yi would not go so far as to go back and snatch the spiritual land back. Looking from afar, the beam of light was not close at all. They sped along the way. He realized that it was indeed not close. It was about 300 to 400 miles long. By the time Lu Yi and the others arrived at the scene, the pillar of light had already converged somewhat, leaving behind only a light screen that was over 100 feet tall. The multicolored light was distorted. If one were to observe it carefully, they would be able to see there were also scenes flashing from time to time. From those scenes, steep mountains and precipitous ridges flashed past, and there were also the figures of unknown cultivators flying across the sky. There were also some birds and beasts. Many cultivators had already gathered around. Most of the cultivators were staring at the distorted light screen with great interest. Lu Yi looked around. There were already 200 to 300 cultivators gathered here, and as time passed, more and more cultivators continued to gather. Judging from the spirit energy fluctuations coming from these cultivators, the strength of the people who came was mixed. There were Cloud River 8th or 9th order cultivators. There were also those who had just broken through to the Cloud River 1st or 2nd order. Suddenly, Lu Ye's gaze fixed on one person. It was a woman in purple with an indifferent expression. As if sensing something, the woman in purple followed his gaze. Their eyes met, and the woman nodded slightly at Lu Yi before withdrawing her gaze. Lu Yi also shifted his gaze away without a trace. He didn't expect that. To meet this woman again so soon. Be careful, this is a large sealed world. Just as Lu Yi was looking around, Shen Xiaomao suddenly came over and exhaled. What do you mean? I've been to this type of sealed world before. The environment inside is very complicated. It's almost a real world. And after entering, everyone will be given a new identity. Who gave it? Heaven's secret. Lu Yi raised his eyebrows. Things with Heaven's secret were never simple. Lu Yi couldn't help but be interested in this sealed world. If his previous speculations were correct, then he, who had been blessed by Heaven's secret, would receive some special treatment under the influence of Heaven's secret. What can you do inside? Do something that suits your new identity. The last time I entered a sealed world, my identity was a spy from a sect who infiltrated an enemy sect. I was looking for an opportunity to steal that sect's guarding treasure. Originally, this was a peaceful world. Although there were many beast-taming sects and conflicts, they did not affect the stability of the entire world. However, things began to change a year ago. An inexplicable disease began to spread in the myriad beast realm. This disease did not affect cultivators, but only monster beasts. However, monster beasts that went crazy became extremely bloodthirsty and difficult to control. The realm of beasts, which was dominated by the beast-taming school, suffered a heavy blow. Not only were the cultivators who used the beast-taming school as their main means of cultivation greatly weakened, some Yao beasts even turned on their masters, biting and killing their masters who had grown up together with them. For a time, the cultivators of the myriad beast realm were in a state of panic. In just a year, the entire cultivation world was turned upside down. Almost all the sects that used the beast tamer school as their main force were destroyed. The peaceful world had undergone a great change. Now, in the realm of beasts, only a dozen sects that didn't use the Beast Tamer School as their main force were still struggling at death's door. They formed an alliance of cultivators to fight against the demonic beasts that had gone crazy. If even the cultivator alliance formed by a dozen sects couldn't stop the crazed beasts, then the entire cultivation world of the realm of beasts would be destroyed. When that time comes, the realm of beasts will become the world of the beasts, and the human race will no longer have a place to live. Now, the remaining cultivators of the dozen or so sects gathered in a city called Two World City. Aside from cultivators, there were also many mortals living in the city. They were the only humans left in the myriad beast realm. At the same time, the monster beasts also set their sights on the last stronghold of the human race. After sorting out the chaotic information in his mind, Lu Yi suddenly opened his eyes. He heard the sound of something breaking through the air, and the scenery around him quickly retreated. Lu Yi found himself in a flying spiritual tool. This was a medium-sized flying spiritual tool that could accommodate 3 to 5 people. A faint fragrance lingered at the tip of his nose. It was the fragrance of a woman. Before Lu Yi could completely recover, he heard a familiar voice calling him, Yi Lu. Following the voice, Shen Kitten's pretty face appeared in front of him. This woman was with him, and they were not separated. Not only was Shen Kitten with him, but there were also 2 other women. One of them was actually Lan Zi. Lu Yi did not know the last one, and he did not know who she was. 3 pairs of eyes stared at him. Lu Yi rubbed his temples, and he felt a headache coming on. This was the first time he had entered this kind of secret realm. According to the clues and information he had sorted out before, just as Shen Kitten said before, he was now given a new identity by Tianji, the young master of the Myriad Beast sect. Heaven's secret had indeed given him preferential treatment. The identity of young master was undoubtedly something that ordinary people could not obtain. Shen Xiaotong, Lan Zi, and even the girl that Lu Yi did not know were all his maids in this secret realm. Chapter 459. On the spirit boat, Lu Yi looked at the 3 women in front of him, and a surreal feeling rose in his heart. He knew that he was Lu Yi of the Jade Blood sect, but the identity given to him here constantly reminded him that he was the young master of the Thousand Beasts sect. The Thousand Beasts sect was the most powerful sect in the entire realm of beasts. Before the disease that made the beasts go crazy spread, the Thousand Beasts sect was the true overlord of the world, and all the forces in the realm of beasts had to look up to them. However, after the disease spread, every sect that used the Beast Tamer School as its main force suffered heavy losses and then fell apart. The Thousand Beasts sect was no exception. Although they held on until the end because of their strong foundation, they could not avoid the fate of being destroyed. 3 days ago, the Thousand Beasts sect fell under the attack of countless beasts. Almost 80% of the sect's disciples died in battle, and the survivors scattered, preparing to take refuge in Two World City. Lu Yi and the other 3 were among them. At this moment, the 4 of them were on their way to Two World City, and there was still more than half a day's journey to Two World City. As the young master of a sect that dominated an entire world, Lu Ye's current status was undoubtedly very honorable. However, this sect had been destroyed 3 days ago, leaving Lu Yi somewhat speechless. Now, his honorable status had undoubtedly been greatly reduced. However, when he thought about Shen Xiaomao and Lan Zi's identities, Lu Yi felt a lot better. Yi was not here, and neither was Hu Pa. Lu Yi hurriedly used the battlefield imprint to send a message to Yi, asking about their current situation. A moment later, he received a reply from Yi. Hu Pa was currently in a city, but he was in a state of imprisonment, and there were many other beasts imprisoned with him. Yi was not clear about the situation, so she did not dare to act rashly, because the cage that imprisoned them was very strong, and Hu Pa could not break it with his strength. In the city, the only safe city in the entire realm of beasts was Two World City, so Yi and the others were most likely in Two World City. Lu Yi sent a message to Yi not to act rashly, and to wait until he arrived, and Yi naturally agreed. Be careful. A low cry came. It was the woman whom Lu Yi did not know who was warning him. As soon as she finished speaking, violent collisions came from the side. Lu Yi hurriedly turned his head to look. There were more than 10 huge figures around the spirit artifact they were in. They were all demonic beasts of different shapes and sizes. Every demonic beast's eyes had a sickly scarlet color. This was a sign that the demonic beast was ill. At this moment, there were a few demonic beasts that were crazily attacking their spirit tools. In the blink of an eye, the air transportation spiritual artifact shattered. Lu Yi and the other three hurriedly summoned their spirit tools and soared into the air. A loud explosion was heard. The air transportation spiritual artifact exploded. He was on his spirit boat. The weapon box at Lu Ye's waist buzzed. 9 imperial artifacts rushed out. Turning into a stream of light, he slashed towards the nearest demonic beast. At the same time, Shen Xiaomao and the other 2 girls also used their own methods. For a time, the light of the imperial equipment and the power of the spells were continuously released. Spiritual energy surged. Although the strength of these demonic beasts was not bad, as a whole, they were not strong enough. It wasn't to the point where Lu Yi and the others were helpless. Following the 4 people's actions, blood splattered everywhere. One by one, the demonic beasts were beheaded, their corpses falling from the sky. After a fierce battle, all the demonic beasts that were chasing after them were killed. The 4 of them turned into 4 streams of light and rushed forward. Among them, the woman that Lu Yi didn't know contributed the most. It was because the cultivation she displayed was the highest, almost at the 8th or 9th order Cloud River realm. In addition, what Lu Yi was concerned about was that Lan Zi's strength was also at the 2nd order Cloud River realm. He could reach the 2nd order Cloud River realm so quickly. It was because he had obtained a lot of spirit sticks during this period of time. Lan Zi must have done the same. It seemed that Boundless Island attached great importance to Lan Zi. Otherwise, how could she have so many spirit sticks to use? Just as he was thinking this, the woman that Lu Yi didn't know suddenly said, "Introduce yourselves. We may have to work together after this." Heaven's Secret had arranged the 4 of them together. Obviously, he wanted them to help each other. If not, this woman would have left long ago. Because from her point of view, Lu Yi and Lan Zi's 2nd order Cloud River realm cultivation was too low. Shen Xiaomao's 5th order Cloud River realm cultivation was barely enough. But they shouldn't be placed together with her, a 9th order Cloud River realm cultivator. Since Heaven's Secret had arranged it this way, there must be a reason. Yi Lu. Lu Yi reported his name as usual, but did not mention his origin. Shen Xiaomao. Lan Zi. The 9th order Cloud River realm woman nodded slightly. Then, she said, Xia Qian Qian. After exchanging names, they knew each other. Throughout the whole process, whether it was Shen Xiaomao or Lan Zi, Lu Yi didn't show any signs of knowing them beforehand. The same was true for Shen Xiaomao. From an outsider's point of view, the 4 people present were strangers who had never met before. Then let's talk about our respective tasks. Heaven's Secret has given us new identities, and correspondingly, he has also given us some missions, Xia Qian said as she looked at Lu Yi. Tell me, what is your mission? Lu Yi thought for a moment and looked down at his right hand. On his right thumb, there was a jade ring. What was certain was that he had never seen it before. Combining all the information that had surged into his mind, Lu Yi understood. He waved his jade ring at the 3 women and said, "Take some of the 1,000 Beast Sect's assets and find the 2 world cities' city lord. Find a place for the survivors of the 1,000 Beast Sect." This was the mission that he, as the young master, had to carry out at this moment. This jade thumb ring was a very valuable storage item, and at the same time, it was proof of Lu Ye's identity. "What about you 3? Lu Yi looked at the three women. Protect you, Shen Xiaomao was the first to respond. Protect you. Lan Zi looked at him indifferently. Xia Qian smiled but didn't say anything. Lu Yi knew that her mission was to protect him as well. The former second place of the Spirit Stream list, an ally who had signed a Heaven's Secret contract with him, and a 9th Order Cloud River Realm cultivator. This combination wasn't too weak. Coupled with Lu Yi himself, this lineup was enough to deal with most troubles. Heaven's Secret treated him quite well. Little friend, what kind of good deed have you done to make Heaven's Secret value you so much? A meaningful look flashed across Xia Qian's eyes. I've been in and out of this type of sealed world many times, but I've never met a fellow Daoist who has been given such a high status by Heaven's Secret as soon as he enters and has 3 beautiful maidservants to protect him. I'm lucky. Lu Yi raised his brow. Xia Qian chuckled and didn't comment. Suddenly, she looked at the jade ring on Lu Ye's hand with great interest. Can you open it and take a look? See if there's anything good inside. Isn't it inappropriate? Lu Yi hesitated. The responsibility that Tianji had given him was to bring this item to Two World City and give it to the city lord. Then, he would find a place for the survivors of the Thousand Beasts sect to stay. He could imagine that there would be a lot of good things in this jade ring. It doesn't matter if you take a look, Xia Qian urged. Shen Xiaomao and Lan Zi also stared at him. Lu Yi hesitated for a moment before nodding. I'll just take a look. Saying so, he poured his spirit qi into the ring, but there was no response. There's a seal. Let me see if I can open it. Lu Yi said as he carefully examined the seal's structure. The result was extremely surprising. The seal's structure was complex beyond his imagination. After a moment, he shook his head. No, I can't open it. He could open it by force, but doing so would most likely destroy the storage space inside the jade ring. The 3 women withdrew their gazes in disappointment. Xia Qian said dispiritedly, forget it. Since it's a gift from Heaven's Secret, it won't be easy to open. Shen Xiaomao said, Sister Xia, you're the strongest and have been to many sealed worlds like this. What advice do you have? Tell us, and we'll pay more attention in the future. She was obviously asking for Lu Yi and Lan Zi. 2 second-order Cloud River Realm cultivators obviously didn't have much experience in dealing with sealed worlds. Xia Qian said, there's no need for advice. The situation in every sealed world is different, so the methods to deal with it are naturally different. The only thing you need to pay attention to is that everything in this sealed world is real, and everything has happened in the past. Lu Yi frowned, what do you mean? Xia Qian pursed her lips and smiled, literally. Lu Yi thought for a moment, what fellow Xia means is that what we're experiencing now has happened in this world before. Exactly. Why do you say so? I can't prove it, but it's true. I used to think it was impossible, but you'll naturally understand after experiencing it many times. Perhaps somewhere in this world, there was a myriad beast realm that suffered a great calamity and was destroyed. Then, the so-called Heaven's Secret used some mysterious method to refine it into a secret realm and placed it in various parts of the Cloudy River battlefield, allowing us to enter and train ourselves. There are many similar sealed worlds in the Cloud River battlefield, and you'll encounter many more in the future. If that's true, then how could there be monster beasts left after the realm of beasts was destroyed? The ones we just killed, how can you be sure that the monster beasts you killed were real? Maybe they were created by Heaven's Secret to deceive you. Lu Yi was a little confused by her words. Just as she was about to ask again, Xia Qian said, okay, I'm not going to ask you anything. I just want to tell you that Heaven's Secret is unfathomable. If you die here, you're really dead. Maybe one day when we reach the Spirit Sea realm, we'll gradually understand the truth of this world, but for now, we just have to do what Heaven's Secret wants us to do. As the saying goes, follow Heaven's Secret and good fortune will follow. Lu Ye's heart shook. The truth of the world. He'd heard this once before, when the suppressed true dragon in the dragon spring told him. The true dragon told him to find him after he knew the truth of the world. If what he saw was not the truth of the world, then what was the truth? Chapter 460. Along the way, they encountered a few more waves of monster beasts, but they were easily dealt with by the four of them. Lu Yi and Lan Zi's performance was remarkable, which surprised Xia Qianqian. It was rare for a second-order Cloud River Realm cultivator to display such strength. At the very least, she was much weaker than Lu Yi and Lan Zi when she was in the same realm. She understood that these two people were definitely not nobodies when they were in the Spirit Stream realm. They were most likely masters who ranked very high on the Spirit Stream list. Half a day later, Two World City came into sight. It was a city so huge that one could not see the end of it. The city walls around it were towering and towering. They were more than 200 feet tall, and there was a faint glow on the walls. At first glance, one could tell that various spells had been cast to strengthen the walls and make them more resilient and able to withstand more violent impacts. This was the last and largest stronghold of the human race in the realm of beasts. Now, more than half of the surviving humans in the realm of beasts were gathered here. The survivors who did not gather here were also rushing to this big city. If this city fell, there would be no place for the human race in the realm of beasts. At that time, the human race would be wiped out. When the four of them arrived, a person on the city wall immediately rose into the air and looked from afar. He shouted, "Who are you?" That person wore a set of shiny armor with a long saber at his waist. He looked dignified and there were some bloodstains on his armor. It seemed that he had just gone through a great battle not long ago. The boiling killing intent on his body had not completely calmed down. Many monster beast corpses were piled up below the city wall. Cultivators were casting spells to burn them. The pungent smell could be smelled from a few miles away. Lu Yi replied loudly, "I'm Yi Lu from the Thousand Beast Sect. I'm here on orders." Thousand Beast Sect. The person's expression turned serious as he looked at Lu Yi. "Who is Yi Wushuang to you?" Yi Wushuang. Thousand Beast Sect Master. A piece of information appeared in Lu Ye's mind. He braced himself and replied, "He's my father." So it's the young sect master of the Thousand Beast Sect. The person cupped his fists and bowed. After all, it was the largest and most powerful sect in the realm of beasts. Even if it was destroyed, its reputation was still there. "How is your sect now?" the person asked again. Lu Yi put on a sorrowful expression and slowly shook his head. Nothing needed to be said. "My condolences, young sect master." That person sighed. Without asking any further, he extended his hand and gestured, "Young sect master, please enter the city." "Thank you." Lu Yi led Shen Kitten and the others into the city. There were quite a number of cultivators flying about in midair within the city. As far as the eye could see, Two World City was practically packed with people. There was a sea of people everywhere, and there was nowhere to stay. The mortals who had been stranded here rested on both sides of the street. One by one, they left their homes. His hair and face were disheveled. In the face of such a great calamity, cultivators more or less had the ability to fight back. But when mortals encountered such a thing, they were basically at the mercy of others. These mortals who could escape to Two Realm City to seek refuge. They were undoubtedly the luckier ones. Most of them were those who didn't have the chance to escape. It could be said that the realm of beasts was filled with corpses. It would not be an exaggeration to say that he was bleeding profusely. Although he knew that this was just a mystic realm, however, when he truly integrated into this big environment he could still feel the helplessness of being weak. The entire world was heading towards its end. "What should we do now?" Shen Kitten asked. Lu Yi thought for a moment and said, "Let's exchange our imprints. Then, we'll split up." Fellow Daoist Xia will accompany me to the city lord's mansion. Fellow Daoist Shen and fellow Daoist Lan can go and inquire about any information. The few of them had no objections. They immediately exchanged their respective battlefield imprints. They split up. Lu Yi led Xia Qianqian in the direction of the city lord's mansion. Xia Qianqian said, "It seems that you've felt it." "What do you mean, fellow Daoist Xia?" "You, the young master of the 10,000 Beasts sect, isn't very valued. Otherwise, why would you ask me to accompany you to the city lord's mansion?" So fellow Daoist Xia has also felt it. If you're really valued, then, at this moment, there should be someone from Two Realms City who's on stage to entertain you. After all, you were once the young master of the strongest sect in this world. However, the people of Two Realms City just let you in and didn't care about you. Two Realms City's attitude is already very obvious. It's normal. The tea cools down when people leave. The 10,000 Beasts sect is gone. What weight do I have as the young sect master? And if I'm not wrong, the relationship between Two Realms City and the 10,000 Beasts sect isn't very harmonious. Oh. What do you mean? If these two sects were harmonious enough, the people of the 10,000 Beasts sect would have come to Two Realms City long ago. Why would the sect be destroyed by the beasts? In this world, the beast-taming sect shines brightly, but it doesn't mean that the other sects are useless. The 10,000 Beasts sect is the strongest representative of the beast-taming sect. Two Realms City should be the strongest representative of the other sections. That's why after the beasts went crazy, Two Realms City became the last place where cultivators gathered. Xia Qianqian was deep in thought. She nodded slightly. What you said makes sense. I didn't think of this before. It seems that you're not only lucky, but you're also smart enough. No wonder you were chosen by Tianji to have such a high status. Lu Yi really wanted to say that he was just lucky. After Tianji blessed him, his luck had always been very good. So we might have to rely on senior sister Xia later. We didn't just come to Two Realms City to seek refuge. At the same time, we're also contributing our strength to the continuation of the human race. Xia Qianqian smiled and said, "Hearing you say that, my shoulders suddenly feel heavy." As they spoke, the two flew to the central hall of Two Realms City. Before they arrived, someone shouted from below, "Flying above the city lord's mansion is prohibited." Flying was prohibited in the city, but there was one thing to note. They couldn't fly above the city lord's mansion. This was related to the face of Two Realms City. After all, the city lord was in the city lord's mansion. Lu Yi and Xia Qianqian landed in front of the grand hall, where they saw many panic-stricken cultivators, all of them waiting anxiously. "What are you doing here?" The cultivator who shouted at the two just now came forward and asked impatiently. Lu Yi cupped his fists. 10,000 Beasts Sect Yi Lu is here to greet the city lord. Please inform him. Greet the city lord? The man's face turned cold. Everyone here is here to see the city lord. Line up and wait. It was as if he didn't hear the words 10,000 Beasts Sect. The man was about to leave after saying that, but Xia Qianqian suddenly pushed her spirit energy. The man's face turned cold. He looked Xia Qianqian up and down and said uncertainly, "Cloud River Ninth Order." Compared to the 9 states, the realm of beasts wasn't big. At most, it was the size of the Spirit Stream battlefield. Due to the size of the world, the highest cultivation in the realm of beasts was the Cloud River Ninth Order. Whether it was the city lord of Two Realms City or the sect master of 10,000 Beasts sect, they were all at this cultivation level. In the 9 states, it wasn't too difficult for a Cloud River realm cultivator to reach the 9th order as long as they had enough cultivation resources. However, this wasn't the case in the realm of beasts. After a cultivator reached the Cloud River realm, every breakthrough was extremely difficult. Looking at the entire world, there weren't many Cloud River 9th order cultivators. Every one of them was a top master. Therefore, when Xia Qianqian revealed her cultivation, she attracted the attention of a group of people nearby. At this critical juncture of the human race, the appearance of a Cloud River Ninth Order cultivator would undoubtedly bring more peace and security to others. Xia Qianqian said indifferently, "Can I trouble you to inform him? Just say that the young master of 10,000 Beasts sect is here to visit the city lord." Only then did the man nod, "Please wait a moment." Saying so, he turned around and ran into the hall. The 1,000 Beasts sect had already been destroyed. He didn't care about the young master of 10,000 Beasts sect, but he couldn't ignore a Cloud River Ninth Order cultivator. Lu Yi secretly gave Xia Qianqian a thumbs up. In his heart, he somewhat understood why Heaven Ji arranged a Cloud River Ninth Order cultivator to be his maid. With a top master like Xia Qianqian by his side, some things would be more convenient. After waiting for a while, the man returned. His expression was much more polite as he cupped his fists to Lu Yi. "Young Master Yi, the city lord invites you in." Lu Yi nodded and led Xia Qianqian into the hall. After a while, they entered a side hall and met the city lord of Two Realms City. This was a white-haired old man. He was very old and his aura was somewhat rotten. He sat on a chair and held a cup of tea as he looked at Lu Yi indifferently. Lu Yi led Xia Qianqian forward and stood not far from the old man. He cupped his fists and said, "Yi Lu greets the city lord." The old man nodded slightly, his gaze inadvertently sweeping over Xia Qianqian who was standing behind Lu Yi. He reached out and stroked his beard. "How fast. The last time I saw you, you were just a child. In the blink of an eye, you have grown so much. This old master has heard about the 1,000 Beasts sect. The dead are gone, so you don't have to be too sad. This old master and your father have been friends for so many years. This old master is very pleased that you came to seek refuge with this old master. Since you are here, you can stay here with peace of mind. I will follow the city lord's arrangements." Lu Yi took off the jade ring on his thumb and placed it on the table beside the old man. "Before I came, my father asked me to give this to the city lord." The old man reached out and picked up the jade ring. His dim eyes flashed and he nodded slightly, "Thank you." He raised his hand and called out, "Ah si. Sir." From the shadows, a figure walked out. It was a thin man. This man's exposed skin was covered with colorful lines, looking very strange. "Take them down and settle them down." "Yes." He turned to Lu Yi and said, "Please come with me." As the man called Asi walked out of the city lord's mansion, Asi soared into the sky and led Lu Yi and Xia Qianqian to a place outside Two Realms City. A moment later, they appeared outside a courtyard. Si pointed to the gate of the courtyard and said, "The two of you can stay here for the time being." "Thank you." After pointing out the location for Lu Yi, Si soared into the sky again and quickly left. Lu Yi and Xia Qianqian looked at each other and pushed open the gate. A unique small courtyard immediately appeared in front of them. Chapter 461. The courtyard wasn't big, and there weren't many rooms, but it was enough for the four of them. The jade thumb ring that Lu Yi had given out had undoubtedly played an important role in allowing them to have an independent courtyard in this crowded Two-World City. If it weren't for the jade thumb ring, the people of Two-World City would have probably settled them down casually. Xia Qianqian was checking the rooms, and Lu Yi took the opportunity to send a message to Shen Kitten and Lan Zi, informing them of their current location. She also sent a message to Yi, asking about the situation on her side. Yi and Hoopa were still safe, but Hoopa had been locked in a cage and couldn't get out. After waiting for less than half an hour, Shen Kitten and Lan Zi returned. In the room, the four of them sat down, exchanging all the information they had. Lu Yi said, "Now that we've settled down in Two Realms City, I'm not sure what we're going to do next. However, it's still related to resisting those crazy demonic beasts, so we have to be prepared for battle at all times. Xia Qianqian nodded. Generally speaking, the ultimate goal of this kind of training in the secret realm is to resolve the crisis that this world is facing, so what we have to do is not only to resist the demon beasts, but also to find the cause of those demon beasts' illness and solve the problem from the root, so that we can save this world. Save this world? Shin Kitten was stunned. Isn't this a bit too much? As I said before, everything we've experienced has happened before. The realm of beasts should have been destroyed, but the mysteries of heaven are unpredictable, allowing us to experience these things that have happened before, so we have the opportunity to do what the cultivators of the realm of beasts couldn't do before. If we can really save this world, the benefits we'll get will not be small. Of course, even if we succeed, the realm of beasts won't come back to life. But this is the test of the mysteries of heaven, and the task is indeed difficult. But don't forget, there are more than the 4 of us who entered this secret realm, there are others. Lu Yi nodded slightly. Let's talk about the information first. Fellow Shin, did you find out anything? Shin Kitten said, there's not much useful information. I only know that many cultivators of the 9 states have entered Two Realms City, and some of them are refugees like us. There are also some who were given positions in Two Realms City by the mysteries of heaven, working in various positions. Then there are the demon beasts. The cultivators of Two Realms City did not specialize in beast taming. That was why this place could become the final stronghold of the cultivators. However, the beast taming school was mainstream in the realm of beasts. Therefore, there were still some demonic beasts in the city. Now, those demonic beasts were all imprisoned together. The Two Realms City's side couldn't decide whether to kill all the demonic beasts or not. It's better to stay. Where are the demonic beasts being held? Lu Yi hurriedly asked. If he wasn't mistaken, the place where the demonic beast was being held was where Hoopa was. He had to take advantage of the time before Two World City made a decision. Let's get Amber out first. It's in a beast park in the east of the city. That place used to be the place where most of the demonic beasts were bought and sold. Xia Qianqian frowned. The danger of the realm of beasts comes from the demonic beasts' insanity. Why does Two Realms City keep these demonic beasts? The beast taming school is the main body. Many of the fleeing cultivators were cultivators of the beast tamer school, and some of their natal demonic beasts had died in battle. Some of them had gone mad and rebelled. If there were no demonic beasts, their strength had been greatly reduced, so keeping these demonic beasts should be of some use. At the very least, they can help those cultivators of the beast tamer school recover their strength. Aren't they afraid that these demonic beasts will also go mad? There are signs when demonic beasts go mad. Xia Qianqian understood. I see. What about fellow Taoist Lan? Lu Yi turned to look at Lan Zi. Lan Zi didn't say a word. She threw a black identity token on the table in front of her and said, I found the recruitment office and the military supply office of Two Realms City. Go to the recruitment office and get a token like this. You're a member of Two Realms City and have to listen to the orders of Two Realms City. What's the benefit? Shin Xiaotong was curious. This token can be used to send messages and record battle achievements. Battle achievements can be exchanged for all kinds of cultivation resources at the military supply office. Lan Zi paused, including all kinds of quality spirit sticks. The few of them were instantly energized. Although the experience in the secret realm was a kind of training, it was also an opportunity. The various opportunities in the Cloud River battlefield. Most of them were to obtain cultivation resources. Lu Yi was a little puzzled at first. The situation in the realm of beasts was so complicated. What were the benefits of the cultivators fighting to the death? Now she knew, Tianji had already made arrangements. A moment later, 3 figures flew into the sky. It was Lu Yi, Xia Qianqian, and Shin Xiaotong. Lan Zi stayed behind to look after the house to prevent others from taking over. Following Lan Zi's directions, the 3 of them soon arrived at the recruitment office of Two Realms City. There was already a long queue outside the recruitment office. Clearly, They were all cultivators who wanted to join Two Realms City. Some of them were local cultivators who fled from the realm of beasts. Some of them looked familiar. They were clearly cultivators from the 9 states. The queue disappeared quickly. After all, it was just registration and the issuance of identity tokens. It wasn't a complicated process. Not long after, it was Lu Ye's turn. He reported his name as Yi Lu. After the cultivators of Two Realms City finished registering, he received his identity token. It looked the same as Lan Zi's. It was also a black piece. Lu Yi immersed his mind and checked it. It recorded his name, origin, and battle achievements. What surprised Lu Yi was that the battle achievements recorded were not 0, but more than 30 points. When Shen Xiaotong and Xia Qianqian also received their identity tokens, they found that everyone had some battle achievements. Xia Qianqian had the most, about 70 points. This should be the battle achievements we accumulated on the way here from killing those monsters, Xia Qianqian guessed. This was the only explanation. These battle achievements were recorded by Tianji, so there was no way he would remember wrongly or miss records. On the way here, Xia Qianqian killed the most monsters, so she also had the most battle achievements. Let's go to the military supply office, Lu Yi suggested. They soon arrived at the military supply office next door. As usual, there was a large group of people checking there. Looking at their clothes, they were clearly cultivators from the 9 states. They were all beaming with joy. Clearly, they had a lot of good things. After a short while, the 3 of them received a jade slip. This jade slip recorded the various resources that could be exchanged at the military supply office, as well as the exchange price. Lu Yi looked around and found that there were many different types of resources in this place, and the quantity was also very large. Almost everything that could be used by cultivators at the Cloud River tier could be exchanged here. He couldn't help but be surprised. There were so many good things in this realm of beasts. However, considering the workings of Tianji, it wasn't too strange. It wasn't clear whether there were good things in the realm of beasts, but there was everything in the Tianji treasury. If there were no surprises, the resources exchanged at the military supply office all came from the Tianji treasury. The spirit lot that Lu Yi cared about was on the exchange list. The price was very good. The white lot was 200 battle achievements, the green lot was 600, the blue lot was 1,800, the purple lot was 5,400, and the gold lot was 16,200. Based on this, the value of battle achievements was almost the same as merit points. This was because when Lu Yi participated in the spirit lot auction, he also spent 200 merit points to buy the white lot. This was an opportunity for all cultivators who entered the sealed world of the realm of beasts. In the outside world, even if a cultivator had enough merit points, they couldn't buy a spirit lot at will. They could only participate in the spirit lot auction held by the Tianji Commerce Union. Whether or not they could win a spirit lot depended on luck. But here, as long as you had enough merit points, you could exchange for as many spirit lots as you wanted. Where did merit points come from? All you had to do was kill those crazy monster beasts. Weren't those crazy monster beasts the most common in the realm of beasts now? Sure enough, it was an opportunity. No wonder Cloud River tier cultivators were so keen on entering the sealed world. There was no such good opportunity on the Cloud River battlefield. If Lu Yi could see this, the other cultivators naturally could as well. The cultivators at the military supply office had already begun to group up and prepare to go outside the city to clear out the monster beasts. Currently, there were many crazy monster beasts gathered outside Two Realms City. When Lu Yi rushed over, he saw some monster beast corpses below the city walls. What do you think, fellow Yi? Xia Qianqian looked at Lu Yi excitedly. With her Cloud River 9th Order cultivation, she could act even if she was alone. But Heaven's Secret had also given her the mission of protecting Lu Yi, so it was up to Lu Yi to decide whether to leave the city or not. She could certainly leave Lu Yi behind and act alone, but if something happened to Lu Yi, Heaven's secret would punish her. That was not something she was willing to risk. You guys go back first. Wait for me for a while. I have some personal matters to attend to, Lu Yi ordered and soared into the sky, flying towards the east of the city. Along the way, he asked a few people. After searching for a while, he finally found the beast park where the monster beasts were kept in Two Realms City. It was a huge building. People outside could hear the constant roars of beasts coming from inside. There were 2 cultivators guarding the entrance of the beast park. When Lu Yi landed, the 2 immediately looked over vigilantly. Lu Yi looked at the 2 of them, then walked towards the young man on the left and cupped his fists. Greetings, fellow Taoist. The young man raised his eyebrows and lowered his voice. From the 9 states? Lu Yi nodded. The young man's expression immediately became more amiable. He was obviously from the 9 states, but his luck was not very good. He was given the task of guarding the beast park. He asked, "What is it, fellow Taoist?" No matter what camp they came from, in this sealed world of the 10,000 beasts, all the cultivators from the 9 states were not enemies. They were the same as the native cultivators of the 10,000 beasts. Their only enemies were the crazy monster beasts. My pet beast was separated from me when we came in. It is imprisoned inside. I want to get it out, Lu Yi told the truth. The young man immediately showed a troubled expression. This is not easy. You know the current situation. The cultivators of the 10,000 beasts are very vigilant against monster beasts. If it were any other time, let alone 1, I could get you 10. But now, I really can't. Fellow Taoist, please show me the way, Lu Yi said as he took out a bottle of source spirit pills and handed it over. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.